Damn. Chitlin circuit. That was an adventure. I told y'all this before numerous times. Sometimes the most comforting, calming thing is to just sit down and get behind the mic. You deal with so much stuff throughout the day. The kids get home, they drive you nuts. You finally get them to bed, and then you just sit down, and then there's this deep exhale, like, and the best way for me to do that is to just get behind the mic. There's nothing like it. Okay, there are other things that probably trump it, but this is one of the top things, I'll say. So much to get to tonight. There have been things I've put off that I wanted to talk about, but free agency trumps everything. So there were things that I wanted to get to that I haven't. But now we got all the time in the world. There's nothing stopping us. There's no restrictions. I'm gonna just let it rip tonight, and you can chime in. Love to hear your opinions on a lot of these things. Tyron Smith just signed a deal with the Jets. Makes a ton of sense. I thought he would chase a chip. I said that after money, chasing a chip is the second biggest reason that guys choose a destination. He combined the two, right? 1 year, I think it ended up being something like 20 million. I mean, that sounds about right. He got to pick wherever he wanted to go. He wanted to go somewhere where he could win a championship. The Jets are all in, obviously. He signed a 1-year deal. Aaron Rodgers may play 1 or 2 more years. I don't see him playing more than 2 more years. And so it makes a ton of sense. The Jets are all in. If they don't win the Super Bowl in this little window that they have, they're not going to win one anytime soon. So let's just get to the show, right? I got so much stuff I want to say. My brain is on overload right now. You are dialed in to the LouieTeeNetwork podcast that starts now. The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description. Who else could it be? Me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the Louie T Network podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. So much to get to tonight. I want to start the show off before we even get to the gym dropping session or anything like that, and we get to the brass tacks of why we're here tonight. I want to start with a topic that I've been pushing off for a bit over a week now. I don't think we talked about this on the pod at all in any capacity. I don't think anybody's brought it up, but it should be a bigger story than what it ultimately has been. But Nick Saban retired. And I think we did mention it when it happened, but we didn't know why. And we've gotten clarification on why he hung it up. And I'm fascinated by his rationale. And anybody that thought clearly and concisely about NIL deals knew that this was going to happen. And I'm starting to think to myself, now that I'm playing everything back in my mind, all of the Hall of Fame coaches called it quits as soon as NIL deals became a thing. Coach K quit, Roy Williams quit, and you could start to see the fabric of college sports kind of changing a bit. In the moment, I just thought, guys are old. They're ready to pass the torch. But Roy Williams, I remember very vividly saying it's not the same. Coach K, I think he was just ready to go. It was a grind. It was a hassle. And I think he was ready to just pass it off to, somebody younger that was ready for the job. But he probably would tell you the same thing. It wasn't the same, right? But Nick Saban didn't seem like he was ready to stop coaching. It felt like he still had more to give. And he's one of those deceptive guys, because I think Saban's 70 years old too. He's not a young guy at all. But much like Pete Carroll, full of life, tons of energy, and probably could do it another 5 years if he wanted to, easy. But he said after the playoff loss to Michigan, it cinched it for him. He said every single player essentially wanted to know after the loss, how much playing time am I going to get, and how much NIL money am I going to get next season? They weren't thinking about the ultimate prize. They weren't distraught about the loss. They weren't focused on getting back to the mountaintop the following year. How are we going to use this as motivation? You know, listening to Michigan, J.J. McCarthy and Blake Corum and Mike Samerstrill and all those guys, their primary focus after losing to TCU last year in the college football playoffs was getting back to the playoffs, and this time closing the deal, this time finishing the job. They had no other objective but winning a national championship. They could care less about anything else. And we saw all the distractions that the Michigan Wolverines went through during this past college football season. Everything that you could have as a distraction happened to them, and they still went undefeated and hoisted the national championship trophy. So you go from one end of the spectrum of, look, our program hasn't won a national championship since 1997, and we're going to do everything in our power to bring that back to Ann Arbor. And then you got another program that's spoiled rotten because all they've done is win over the last decade or two under Nick Saban. And so it's brought them this level of, I don't want to say they're spoiled. Let's just leave it at that. They've been spoiled. And there's an expectation of winning. And at the point that they're at Alabama, it's no longer about team, it's about individual. Because we're at Alabama. So I'm gonna get mine. And Nick Saban was like, this isn't the culture that I got into coaching for. This isn't what coaching is supposed to be about. We're supposed to be about changing lives. And he even said, look, I'm all about NIL deals. I'm all for them. I'm all about guys getting paid. But there needs to be some structure. And I always thought before NIL deals came into focus, while guys like, you know, Ed O'Bannon were going to court for name and likeness, suing NCAA for using them in the video games and things of that nature, you could see this coming a mile away. And I always said to myself, if they're going to allow players to use their name, image, and likeness as a way to profit, which I got no issues with. I could care less. I don't have a dog in the fight. You better have some way to make this uniform, to have structure, because if it turns into the wild, wild west, it's going to erode the fabric of college sports. And really, to me, basketball won't be affected as much. I don't know if you guys saw this, but college basketball next year is going to introduce an NIL tournament next year, right? It's like an in-season tournament. And I'm just thinking to myself, guys already don't want to go to school when they go to college. Like 80% of these athletes are going to school for one purpose. They're not going to school because they want an excellent education. You know, there's some guys that are going to school and they take being a student athlete serious. But a lot of these guys have no interest in going to, you know, chemistry 101, right? Guys have no interest in going to school and doing 15 credit hours and having to study for Penn State, who they play on Saturday. A lot of these guys just want to go and play sports. And now when you add in name, image, and likeness, a lot of these dudes are broke. A lot of these dudes came from backgrounds where They just trying to make it. This was an escape. This was an opportunity to change their families' lives, go to school, and the goal and the focus was always to get to the NFL. Why was that the goal? Why was that always the driving force? Because that's where the money was. Well, guess what? If I can get paid in college, I don't need the NFL as much. Now, some guys want to play at the highest level. Some guys are chasing after that money. But there are players that know I'm probably not good enough to go, so I'm going to try to milk this opportunity. And, you know, a lot of guys have egos, and they don't think that this is where the road ends for them, you know. But some players are realistic. Some guys are like, look, man, if I was at home right now, I'd be in these streets getting this money, paper chasing. So I'm going to do the same exact thing here in college. I got an opportunity to profit off my name, image, and likeness. I'm going to do exactly that. So instead of worrying about, are we going to get back here next year, be able to beat Georgia in the SEC championship game, and this time go to the playoffs and win, I'm worried about, hey, am I going to play next year? Because if I'm going to play, I'll stay. Because then I'm going to make some money off my name, image, and likeness. If I'm not getting any PT, if I ain't getting no clock, I'm going ahead and heading over to that transfer portal so I can go somewhere where I can get some shine. They could break me off, and I can get what I got coming to me. And it's changing everything. And Nick Saban said he had a dinner that he has all the time. He said it's a breakfast where he brings in his players, and his wife, him and his wife host the players at their home. His wife cooks, you know, food, and they sit down, they fellowship with them. And, you know, he talks about life and, you know, what this game can do to help change your life. But just keep in mind that there are things that are much bigger than football. And him and his wife do this every year, according to Nick Saban. And his wife, after the season this year, as they, you know, I think he said, she turned and looked at him and said, why are we doing this? And he had already been thinking, this isn't what I signed up for. And he said that was the cincher for him. That was the closer, right? That was him knowing it's time to go. When my wife can see it. I've been seeing it, but I wasn't going to say anything. But if my wife sees it, yeah, it's time for me to get out of the game. And I'm telling you, it's the wild, wild west in college, man, right now. I mean, the greed that college sports has turned into, the collegiate, and I'm not the biggest college guy, so it doesn't hurt me. It doesn't affect me, but it's the real college fans that I feel bad for, because the college football, the college sports that you grew up loving, watching. I remember I had a teacher, a world history teacher in 11th grade. Shout out to Susan Flavin. And me and her became buddies. I could not stand her my 9th and 10th grade year, because when we would walk through the hallway, she would always be nagging, just nagging. Like, leave me the hell alone. I don't even know you, lady. Stop talking to me. You know how you are when you're a kid. You think you know everything. Don't nobody supposed to say nothing to you, that type of thing. I get her class and I'm like, oh, I got this B's class, right? I'm like hot because I can't stand her because she's always pestering me. And she turned out to be one of the nicest women ever. Now, she had this permanent scowl on her face. So if you didn't know her, you would think she's pretty nasty, right? And her eyes were big. She would always be like this. Her eyes would be big as silver dollars. And she had this scowl on her face all the time. And so I went into her class thinking she was going to be a jerk. And she was awesome. And she loved college sports. And we would have these deep conversations. The next year, I had her for my, one of my, I didn't have a lot of courses, study hall. I didn't have a lot of courses in 12th grade because I finished up everything so early. I only had like 3 or 4 courses. So, study hall, you can go if you want. If you got a great relationship with your study hall teacher, which I did, come go as you please, right? So we would sit down sometimes when I did decide to show up, and we would talk ball. And she loved college sports. She loved Virginia Tech. And she said, you know why I love college so much? Is because there's a level of passion that exists in collegiate sports that doesn't at the pros, because these guys aren't playing for money. They're playing for the ability to make money, but more importantly, they're playing for the love of the game, for the love of each other, for that brotherhood. And I had never, viewed it that way. I just always looked at, college pros, right? There's a lot of people like Miss Flavin who are probably not happy with the direction of collegiate sports. I mean, look at what they're doing to these conferences, right? I mean, this is ridiculous. Combining all these schools. I don't know who's in what. Texas is now in the SEC, probably should have been there to begin with, but the fact that they're there now after being in the Big 12 for years, and I'm looking around Oregon. Where are they? Are they in the SEC too? I don't know where anybody is anymore. This is crazy, right? So I think the NIL deals are a microcosm, honestly, of the greed of collegiate sports. And it's really hurting the product. Now, we'll see over the next 4 or 5 years, they're going to expand the college football playoffs. I think I saw something where they're talking about expanding it to 14 teams. And we'll see how that plays out. And we'll see how these mega conferences look. Because at the end of the day, this thing is going to turn into like 3 or 4 massive conferences, and that's it, right? You get in where you fit in, or else you're on the outside looking in, right? We'll see how this all plays out. 4 years from now, we might be accustomed to it, and this whole conversation that I'm having is a thing of the past and irrelevant, because now we're used to it and it's good, and the product remains unmatched from a collegiate perspective. Or we could be talking about this same thing 2-3 years from now and saying, what a cluster F this is. Man, did they mess this thing up 6 ways to Sunday. We'll see, but I can tell you this much. Listening to Nick Saban talk about why he stopped coaching was eye-opening for me. And I knew NIL deals were going to have a negative impact, because you can't give an 18-year-old an opportunity to make real bread and expect him not to try to maximize that. I'm sorry. I just think about where my head was at 18. You think about where your head was at 18. If you haven't gotten to 18, think about where your brain is now. And think about how you, in your relationship to money, and think about the opportunity that these kids are being given, essentially. They're being given the keys with no supervision, no one to guide them. Hey, here's your opportunity to make some money. What you gonna do with it? You can stay here and wait your turn like Brian Robinson Jr. Hell no, I'm not doing that, because there ain't no money in that. There's no NIL deals for the dude that's, the third string running back. Ain't no NIL deals for him. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pack my things up. I'm going to hit this transfer portal, and I'm going to go to NC State, where I'm going to end up being the starting running back, and there's plenty of money in that. I think, too, with Nick Saban, and he didn't say this, but I think this is another driving force. Recruiting has changed. Just like the players wanted to know, how much playing time am I getting next year, and how much NIL deal money am I getting? How much you paying me to come to your school? How deep are your boosters' pockets? I'm seeing guys that would have never gone to Missouri going to Missouri. Why are they going to Missouri? Because Missouri offered them the biggest payout. That's why. I've seen players sign up to go to a school, retract that because the NIL deal fell through. It's almost like a contract, essentially. And not like signing day, you sign your letter of intent contract. I'm talking about like literally I'm coming to your school for 3 years. This needs to be a 3-year, $15 million deal. And if anything falls through, I'm out. I mean, shit's crazy, Brett. That's the landscape of college football and really collegiate sports right now. I don't really feel like basketball is going to be as affected by this as I think football will. But, we'll see what happens. Anyway, I digress. One thing that the NFL has tried to do is they've spun NIL into a positive from an evaluating standpoint. Now we've gotten to see how guys handle money, because one of the biggest factors in why guys fail at the next level is they couldn't handle all that came with being a pro, including the money that came with it. They got the money, the celebrity, they lost their minds. They didn't handle the off the field stuff well, and their performance on the field suffered because of it. So now you get to see guys having some money put in their pocket. And did they still perform at a high level? Did they treat it like a business? Were they professional? Did they take care of everything that they needed to take care of? Or did the money change them? So they're using it as a tool at the next level, at the NFL level now. That's a part of the evaluation process. Hey, how did he handle his NIL money? Was he the same guy when he showed up on campus as when he left? These are now things that they're asking, right? Anyway, I digress. Real quick update from a viewing standpoint. We're going to get into the rest, I believe, the rest of the terminal list this weekend. That's the hope. Don't have much left anyway. And then we're going to start something new. I got to check out some of these other shows that have been requested. You guys have done a tremendous job of recommending shows to us. Somebody said Banshee is something that we need to check out. So I'm going to have my wife check out the preview for that, see if it's something worth our time. And we're going to continue to kind of parse through some of the recommendations. Everyone's telling us, you got to watch Shogun. You got to watch Shogun. You got to watch. We went and watched the preview, and I looked at my wife, and she looked at me, and we were like, I don't know about this. Like, normally, you got to hook us, on that preview. You got to give us a reason to come back and actually watch episode 1. I wasn't really feeling the preview. And people are telling me about guys being burnt alive, and I don't even know if I want to see that. That seems extremely graphic. I don't even know if I want to watch somebody being burnt alive, right? Watching their body melt and hearing them have this blood-curdling scream. I don't know if I want to. He's like, and he was screaming for like 5 minutes. I don't know if I want to watch that. I don't know. I don't even think my wife wants to watch that. We know how diabolical my wife can be. I don't even know if she wants to see that. I think she wants to she'd probably rather see somebody catch an axe to the neck, or she usually likes to stick to bang bang shoot 'em ups, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, I digress. Let's get to the proceedings this evening. I'm already talking your head off, and we haven't even gotten to the gym dropping session. Shame on me. Anyway, let's go ahead and right or wrong. Let's get to the gym dropping session, shall we? I think we shall. Let me drop this gym on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T double E. Let me open you up. Get you thinking a little bit. This free agency period, I told you guys it would be crazy. It's been beyond crazy. It's been wicked. And the best way to describe it for me in my mind is we're seeing the changing of the guard in the NFL's front offices. I was talking to a buddy of mine today. And first of all, my buddy is so delusional. Like I had to really tighten him up today because he was talking reckless, right? He's a Raiders fan. And we're talking about the quarterbacks. And he's like, there's no consensus with these quarterbacks. I'm like, sir, yes, there is. He's like, so if y'all took Bo Nix and said, whoa, time out. See, this is why you tripping. Let me get you right. First of all, Caleb Williams is going number 1. So there is a consensus. Now, after Caleb Williams, there is no consensus. 2 and 3, you're all over the map. And then if you get the crazies interjecting into the conversation, you could have somebody from the outside of the top 3 sliding into the top 3, i.e. Chris Sims, right? Who always seems to have a list that's contrary to everybody else's, which is cool. That's his thing, okay? At the end of the day, there is a consensus top 3. You could put them in whatever order you want, but there's a top 3. There's a few steps that are taken, and then you get to the next 3, okay? And then you can order those and sort those in whatever way you like. But there's no debating that Caleb Williams, Drake May, and Jaden Daniels are the top 3 quarterbacks in this draft. You can debate if you'd like. Knock yourself out. You want to slide Bo Nix, you want to slide J.J. McCarthy into the top 3 and remove one of them, knock yourself out. You're not going to find many people that are going to join you in that argument, however. But again, do you? But for most of us, those are the top 3 passers. You take a few steps, and then you get to the next wave. And the next wave consists of Bo Nix, J.J. McCarthy, and Michael Penix Jr. You put them in whatever order you like there, okay? Caleb Williams is number 1. He's going number 1. He was always going number 1. That's that. Now, who drafts him at 1? That's still debatable for some. For me, the Bears aren't trading the pick, which is what I've been trying to get through Commanders fans' skulls. Stop talking about, oh, you know, we could get Caleb Williams to DC. He isn't coming here because he doesn't have the option to come here. The Bears hold all the cards, and they're trying to actively move Justin Fields, which tells you where their head is at. They'll figure something out in terms of getting Justin Fields onto another NFL roster, but they're taking Caleb Williams. So then that leaves Washington and New England to figure out what they're going to do. And my buddy was like, man, I want Jaden. I said, you want who? I said, Jaden, as in Jaden Daniels, JD5, as in LSU Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, Jaden Daniels? He's like, yeah. I'm like, man, get off my damn phone. I said, get off my line, bro. He's like, what you talking about? I said, bro, there's no way you're getting him. What are you talking about? Like, come back to reality. He's like, man, AP been selling me some stuff. I'm like, well, bro, come on now. Be real. We not trading number 2. And unless something catastrophically, like something crazy happens, and there's some drastic change in New England, they're not trading the 3rd pick either. He's like, well, what if New England does a New England thing and decides they want to draft Bo Nix? I said, bro, Bill Belichick is no longer in New England. They're not going to pull a Belichickian type move where they go against the grain for the sake of going against the grain because they're the New England Patriots. Elliott Wolf, their new GM, is like, bro, we're going to be doing things differently now. Sorry. And that's where I want to start this conversation. Is I've had a chance to sit down and think, and in having that conversation with my buddy, it made me think about something. What's the common thread? What's the theme here? We're seeing a lot of deals being consummated, a lot of trading of quarterbacks. The Vikings did something pretty interesting. Like, unless somebody told you, I'm willing to trade this pick to you, but you got to go get me another 1st-round pick, what the hell are the Vikings doing? We'll talk about that here in a second. But it's a mentality, and there's been a philosophical shift in NFL front offices. And I was like, well, what's the common thread? What's the common denominator here? Why are we seeing the way that people conduct business, the way that teams conduct business, shifting so drastically? We know it's a copycat league. We know that. I'll give you a great example of why this is a copycat league. Washington Commanders general manager Adam Peters, who is just killing it right now, a.k.a. Chef P. Let him cook. Let him cook. He goes out and executes a beautiful trade, sets the trend. Trade Sam Howell to the Seattle Seahawks. A couple of pick swaps involving the two teams, where Washington gets a third-round pick in exchange for a fourth. So they swap picks there. Washington gives them their fourth. Seattle gives them their third. Same thing happens in the 5th and 6th round. Washington gives Seattle their 6th. Seattle gives them their 5th, right? So Washington now has 2 5th-round picks, no 6th-round pick. Washington now has 3 3rd-round picks, no 4th-round pick. Brilliant. Genius of a move. We don't see that happen. I haven't seen that done in the NFL in terms of a trade. We see pick swaps all the time, and we see them including late-round pick swaps. Like, hey, you give me 192 and I'll give you 212. We see that shit all the time. But when's the last time we saw it involve a quarterback in mid-round pick swaps? It doesn't happen. So our GM, Adam Peters, Chef P, cooks up crack. And then what happens? The next day, the Eagles general manager, Howie Roseman, follows suit and pretty much copies and pastes what our general manager did the day before. It's a copycat league. I've talked about that already. So I said that to say this. The common thread with what's going on right now in the NFL and what we're seeing from a lot of these organizations, the common thread is that they're all going young. And what do I mean by going young? When you look at these front offices and what they've done in terms of their hires, you want to know why I think we're seeing this drastic shift in philosophical belief and how teams are operating and, looking to, I think there's a more of an analytical approach that's taking place, more so than ever before. Teams are valuing the input of analytics. And the reason why this is starting to infiltrate the NFL so much so now is because it's a younger demographic running these teams. And hold on a second, y'all. So there's a younger demographic running these teams, and they believe in analytics. I mean, look at the GMs. Look around the league. Look at how many teams have young GMs now. Out with the old, in with the new. The old guard is over. Those gatekeepers that were here 5, 7, 10 years ago, the Dave Gettlemans, the Marty Herneys, these older general managers are gone. Guys like Belichick and Pete Carroll, who were running their teams with coach-centric approaches, those guys are out now. You look at the NFL. You look at how it's evolved. You look at Minnesota and their GM, analytics guy. You look at Andrew Berry in Cleveland, young analytics guy. You look at the Ravens. They were always at the cutting edge of analytics. Eric DeCosta and company, they've been using analytics, I feel like, far before anybody else was using it on the field, at least. They were taking risk and going for two and doing unconventional things before anybody else was doing it. Everybody looked at them strange when they were doing the things that they were doing. Now, a lot of teams are implementing these things, right? You look at Adam Peters, Commanders general manager, and he even talked about it. He said, a lot of the decisions that we make are based off of the analytics department and what they think is the best move and how we can maximize. The shift is really taking place where I think instead of looking at a player for his skill set, his talent, and what he can provide on the field, teams are not only looking at those aspects, they're looking at that player and they're assigning a trade compensation value to that player. And I think that's one of the biggest changes that we're seeing is once upon a time, teams weren't looking to trade a backup quarterback, or they weren't looking to trade for this player or trade for that player. Remember, we used to talk about this all the time in the NFL. There weren't a ton of trades. We used to talk about how boring the NFL was. Not a lot of trades. Everything's kind of status quo. Guys get, the most action we would get would be, a team going for it at the trade deadline. But in the offseason, it wasn't that many fireworks. We didn't have big name quarterbacks changing teams all that often. You spent your career with the team, and then at the tail end of your career, you might get released or your contract might run out, and then you'll go sign with another team like Peyton Manning did, right? Like Tom Brady did. That's not how it works anymore. Over the last, I'd say 5 years or so, guys like Brad Holmes getting an opportunity, right? And you see these, Terry Fontenot in Atlanta, you see how differently teams are moving and how they're maneuvering. Look at the Bears and how they finessed the system the last 2 years. I've been so impressed with what Ryan Poles has done in Chicago. Hasn't translated to wins yet, but with what they're doing, eventually they're going to break through if they get the quarterback position right, and they're going to get Caleb Williams. He's had the number 1 pick 2 years in a row. He's had 2 draft picks in the first round 2 years in a row. Or I don't think they had 2 last year. They had 1 last year, but they got 2 this year. And he's been wheeling and dealing, and you don't necessarily agree with everything that he's done. Gave up a 2nd-round pick for Montez Sweat, signed him to a long-term deal. Gave up a 4th-round pick for Keenan Allen here recently. But you're seeing a philosophical shift. And it's all young general managers who look at it from a different perspective. Analytics have now entered the game. They've entered the chat. I'll give you a great example. Washington got to week 8 of the season. They were 3-4, and they were at a crossroads. You got Ron Rivera, Jack Del Rio, and company fighting for their lives. Is fighting for their jobs. I'll say that. They need to win. Washington is at home against Philadelphia, and they start that game out like gangbusters. Jump on top of the Eagles 14-3, and they got them by the balls. And they got them on a 4th and 1 deep in Philadelphia territory. They convert this, they're probably going to score because the Eagles haven't stopped them yet. And they call a bogus play. The Eagles break it up. They go down, they score before half, change the whole game. They end up coming back and winning that game 38-31. It was at that moment Washington drops to 3-5 on the season that the analytics department stepped in. They had hired this man named Eugene Shin. And I talked about the Ravens being on the cutting edge of analytics and making decisions analytically. Eugene Shin was with the Ravens for a number of years and kind of helped shape their analytics department and the way that they do things. Well, Washington hired him. One of Josh Harris's first hires was that of Eugene Shin, wanting to really strengthen Washington's analytics department. And Eugene Shin came in and he told Josh Harris, Montez Sweat's trade value will never be higher than what it is right now. Same with Chase Young. If you're going to trade them, now is the time. And in the moment, there were Commanders fans that were upset because they wanted to keep one of the two. There were some team Chase Young out there, but most of us were over Chase. And a lot of people were on the outside looking at, how could you trade Chase Young for a conditional 3rd-round pick or a compensatory, excuse me, 3rd round pick. What are you doing? Oh my God, the Commanders got fleeced. And I remember laughing at all of that stuff, saying, what? You must not really, you don't know what we know about Chase Young. You just know Chase Young in name and spirit. You thinking about Predator Chase Young from Ohio State. You thinking about rookie season, rookie of the year, defensive rookie of the year, Chase Young. That dude long gone, and he not coming back. What we just did is called thievery. We robbed them like 50 Cent. Rob Big Pun. Rob Big Pun without a gun. Snatch his piece and run. He like 500 pounds. How you going to catch me, son? That's how we robbed the 49ers. Without a gun. Chase Young still looking for work as we speak right now. I think a lot of fans were more upset that they traded Montez Sweat away. He was the one that had some sort of value. He was the one that was somewhat consistent. He was the one that fans wanted to keep. And Eugene Shin said, are you willing to pay him what he's going to get on the open market? Again, this is where the analytics comes into play. Because you got to look at it from not only the standpoint of production, this, that, and the third. You got to look at it, what he can fetch you back in a trade right now and what he's going to command in terms of a deal. Are you willing to pay him what he's going to get? And I think Montez Sweat ultimately got like a deal paying him $24 million a year or something like that. Were you ready to pay him that? Probably not. Good for him. Happy for him. But Eugene Shin told Josh Harris, this is what you need to do. And they did it. And it worked out for them. And it put them in a position to land their new GM, which helped them land their new head coach, which puts them in the position that they're in right now. And that's the way that the NFL is operating now. These analytics guys and these analytics departments are in these conversations more now than ever before. And you're seeing this new wave of young GMs, Rand Carthen in Tennessee with the Titans, and Brad Holmes in Detroit, and Terry Fontenot in Atlanta. And I could go on and on with these younger, innovative thinking general managers around the league who just get it. Joe Shane in New York with the Giants. Obviously, Howie Roseman with the Eagles, and Adam Peters with the Commanders. We can go on and on. It's an influx of young, talented general managers. Ryan Poles with the Bears, Andrew Berry with the Browns, etc., etc. You're seeing why we're seeing so many trades, so many things kind of transpiring and taking place. I've never seen an NFL offseason like this. And we've been trending towards this the past 3 off seasons. Remember, it started with Tom Brady. Now, he didn't get traded. He just chose to go to Tampa Bay. But it started with Brady that offseason, going to Tampa Bay, winning the Super Bowl. And that next offseason is where a lot of this started to take place. And it was Detroit getting their new general manager, Brad Holmes, and then him reaching back and grabbing Jared Goff, and Matthew Stafford being traded to the Los Angeles Rams, which we didn't see that. You didn't see big name quarterbacks being traded like that. That's not what happened in the NFL up until that point. You did not see that happening. It just didn't happen. It was commonplace for a veteran quarterback who was one of the best of their era to then at some point get cut, or, Father Time taps him on the shoulder and he says, get out of here. And the team knows Father Time is tapping him on the shoulder and they say, come on, bro, work with us. We don't want to do you like this, but we'll do you if you make us do you. Pause. Like Ben Roethlisberger could have said, nah, I'm going to keep playing. The Steelers was like, I bet. Well, go ahead and do your thing, shorty. Whoa, there, go ahead. You won't be doing it here, though. Now he's like, nah, I'm going to just go ahead and hang it up. I'm done. You're damn right you're done. Some guys don't like going out like that. You got to drag them off the field. But once Stafford got traded, it kind of turned into, and again, it's cool to see that happen, but what are the results of that trade? Because that's where the reinforcement comes into play. You can make the trade if you want. The only way I'm going to try to copy what you just did is if the results that you get from that trade make it worthwhile. That's how you rear kids. That's how you rear animals, with reinforcement. Whether it's positive or negative, that's how you change behavior. Matthew Stafford goes to, so it started with Brady going to the Bucks. Bucks win the Super Bowl. The next year, Matthew Stafford goes to the Rams. Rams win the Super Bowl. So now that's 2 years in a row where a big-time quarterback changes teams and said team wins Super Bowl. That's positive reinforcement. So now everybody's looking to do it. So the following year after that, what happens? Russell Wilson jumps ship, gets traded to the Denver Broncos. Obviously, that didn't work out, but it didn't stop Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos, more importantly, from trying. What happens after that? Aaron Rodgers jumps ship, gets traded to the New York Jets. That was an epic fail, but they still got time to make it right. So you see how this copycat league continues to evolve, and I said all of that to say this. We're going to talk more about free agency. We're going to talk more. So many trades, guys. So many trades. And these aren't like Amari Cooper for a 5th-round pick for a hot ham and cheese sandwich. Like, these are impactful trades. This is a 2nd and a 5th, a swap of 5ths for Brian Burns. This is all these backup quarterbacks being swapped out. You don't know how significant these trades are ultimately going to be, but there are a lot more of them taking place. Joe Mixon getting traded for a 7th-round pick, and then signing a 3-year deal with the Houston Texans. We're seeing so many trades. And then that Vikings trade, I don't know how to say their general manager's name, but he's another one of these analytics-based guys that have come in and kind of changed the way that teams are operating. I'm fascinated by this trade that the Vikings have made with the Texans to position themselves to go up in the draft. They're going up. We're going to talk about it here in a second. They're going up. The question isn't, are they going up? The question is, who are they trading with? So whom are they trading with? And for what player are they going up to get? So let's go ahead and start that conversation. And we'll stick with, matter of fact, we'll just go ahead and start making some social media maneuvers, right? Because I'm a midnight marauder. Y'all know how we do it. Late night Louie on a Friday night. I want to jump into some of these trades and then this Vikings trade to kind of cap it off and really have a discussion, right? So here are the list of trades with the quarterbacks, omitting one, the Sam Howell trade. I got that one committed to memory, so I don't really need to have that in front of me. But look at these trades, right? And all of these trades were pre-Adam Peters trading Sam Howell to the Seahawks, except for the Eagles trade. And then look at how that trade looks in comparison to the trade that Washington pulled off that I told you about earlier. So the first of all of these trades to take place was that of Mac Jones. And Adam Schefter tweeted it out. And all of these are courtesy of Adam Schefter. I just stuck with Shefty on this because he does a really good job of documenting, these trades and making abundantly clear what has transpired. Him and Ian Rappaport do a great job with this stuff, but Adam be all over it. So Adam Schefter writes, trade. Patriots are finalizing a deal to send quarterback Mac Jones to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Sources tell ESPN the trade cannot be processed until the new league year begins Wednesday and he passes a physical. The two sides were discussing a 6th round pick. So essentially, he got traded for a 6th round pick. A song, or as I like to say, a cold, hot ham and cheese sandwich. He got traded for a half full juice box with no straw. You got to drink it through the little hole. Pause. One of the biggest ripoffs is a bag of chips. 2/3 of the bag is air. That's what he just got traded for. Then we had another trade. Cardinals are sending wide receiver Rondale Moore to the Atlanta Falcons for Desmond Ridder, per source. One of the rare player-for-player swaps. We don't get those a lot anymore. That used to be common theme back in the day. You give me your disappointing former first-round pick for my disappointing former first-round pick, and we'll call it even. Evon, Stevon. You give me your disappointing third-round pick, I'll give you my disappointing third-round pick, and we'll see what happens. Change the scenery for both of them, and we'll see if they play better ball elsewhere. It's rare to see player for player swaps like that. Then you got the Washington Commanders trade with the Seattle Seahawks. Sam Howell goes to, as I mentioned earlier, the Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks give up pick 78, which is a third-round pick, late third. And Washington forks over pick 102, which was early fourth round. If I'm not mistaken, the second pick in the 4th round. So pick swap. Then they did the same thing in the 5th and 6th round. Washington gives them their 6th round pick. Seattle exchanges their 5th. So Washington moves up. And with the first pick, Washington moved up 24 spots. With the second pick, Washington moved up 27 spots. Okay. Then you see the pick, the Kenny Pickett trade, and it looks a lot like the one that Adam Peters orchestrated the day before. Steelers get the 98th pick and 2 7th round picks in 2025. Eagles get Kenny Pickett and pick 120. So the Steelers get literally one of the final compensatory picks in the 3rd round. One of those late 3rd round picks, a compensatory pick. And they swapped out that 3rd rounder, the Eagles did, for 120. So the Steelers gave the Eagles a 4th round pick. Eagles gave the Steelers a 3rd rounder so that they could get Kenny Pickett. Tossed in 2 7th rounders at the back end of that thing. But very similar. And as you see, Schefter says it's similar value to Washington and what they got for Sam Howell. Apparently, Kenny Pickett was kicking and screaming like a little bi when they signed up Russell Wilson, as if he had it like that. I don't really understand what Kenny Pickett was doing there, because bro, you've been some shit since you got in the league. I very vividly remember we had to be like week 6 or 7 of this season, and the man had a game against I want to say it was the Vegas Raiders on Sunday Night Football. And I think he threw 2 touchdown passes in that game. And that was the first time in his career that he had thrown multiple touchdown passes in a game. Like, bro, you are literally like 20-something starts into your career, and this is the first time you've had more than 1 touchdown pass in a game? Man, if you don't go sit your ass down some damn where, they bring in Russell Wilson, and I'm pretty sure they told Russ, you're going to start. If you don't go in there and just compete and see what happens, you did this. Your inability to play consistent football and your inability to stay healthy, you did this. But anyway, he's now in Philadelphia in a worse situation, because at least in Pittsburgh, there was a chance you could play. if Jalen Hurts is healthy, you're never seeing the field. So good job, Kenny. Great job. Way to put yourself in a worse position than you were in a day before. But I want to segue to this Vikings trade. I told you I'm so fascinated by this trade right here. All right. So Adam Schefter says Vikings have now announced a draft pick trade with the Texans. Vikings received number 23 overall and 232nd overall. So first round pick and a 7th round pick. In exchange, the Texans will receive 42, 188. So 42 is a 2nd round pick. 188 is a 6th round pick. And a 2nd round pick in 2025. So 2 seconds, essentially. 1 this year, 1 next year, and a 6th round pick. Vikings are going to receive, is 188? 188 might be a 5th round pick. Let me think. Yeah, that's a 5th round pick. 188 is a 5th round pick, not a 6th round pick. So Texans get a 2nd, a 5th, and another 2nd. So we're going to talk about this Vikings angle for a while. So what I want to do is go ahead and knock out the Texans side of this trade. Texans, without seeing how the board falls or anything, just up and trade out of the first round. Now, I'm trying to make sure, because I knew there were like 2 teams that had 2 first-round picks. I think it was Arizona and Chicago. I don't think the Texans had another first rounder this year. They had 2 last year. They don't have 2 this year, I don't think. So them, without seeing how the board falls, just agreeing to move out of the first round altogether is interesting. I think what ultimately happened with the Texans is last season's emergence has expedited their process. Their window of opportunity all of a sudden is open, and is as open as it's going to get, because they've got CJ Stroud conceivably under contract on this rookie deal for at least the next 3 seasons. I know that there's a 5th-year option. He's not getting to that 5th-year option. Okay. By year 4, they'll be negotiating a brand new deal if this trend continues with him that we saw in his rookie season. And we have no reason to believe that it won't, but I'm a guy that needs to see it again. I've seen fantastic rookie seasons turn into, dud second seasons, and then ultimately guys start spiraling out of control. I've seen that before at multiple positions, including quarterback. So do it again. But the Texans went out and signed Danielle Hunter. The Texans traded for Joe Mixon. They went out and got veteran players. They're not looking to continue to build at a nice, efficient rate. They said, no, we won a playoff game last year. We won the division and won a playoff game last year. We hung in with the Ravens for 2 quarters last year in the playoffs. No. We're going for it right now. That first round pick, from a financial standpoint, we're going to have to pay that guy. And while we would love to add a guy with a 5th-year option, that's not what's most important to us. The money is what's important. We don't want to pay another first round pick. So we'll take the 2nd rounder this year. More importantly, we'll take the 2nd rounder next year. Who knows where we'll be at next year, but we'll have more assets to play around with in the event that we need to get back into the first round or whatever the case may be. I just find that interesting that the Texans said, we don't know how the board's going to fall. We don't care. Yeah, you can have our first round pick. Now let's talk about the Vikings angle. All right. now let's talk about the Vikings angle to all of this, because the Vikings trade for an additional first. So they got the 11th pick or the let me. I'm sick of not knowing the draft order. I'm going to commit this thing to memory because I do this every single time. I don't know, and I never know the draft order until I do my mock draft. That's when I finally learn the draft order in the NFL draft. But until then, I'm just as clueless. As long as I know where my team picks, I got to cut this shit out. So let's look at this now. I got it in front of me now, so I can stop this bullshit. So the Vikings now have 23, and they have, I was right, 11. All right, stop second guessing yourself. So they got 11 and 23. The prevailing thought is they're going to package up the 2 picks, and they're going to move up to 4 with Arizona. That's the conversation that's being had right now. Now, we don't know if the Cardinals are willing to move out of 4. They just traded Rondale Moore, who was already falling out of favor in Arizona, which is why they traded him in the first place. No more Hollywood Brown. He's now in Kansas City. So they desperately need wide receiver help. Now, they had their rookie receiver out of Stanford play good football for them, but he's not a number 1, right? They got a chance to get a legit bona fide 1. They can still get a legit bona fide number 1 at 11, but it won't be Rome Odunze, and it won't be the kid from LSU either, right? So you got a decision to make. Do I value having 2 first rounders, and they're probably going to have to toss in a first rounder next year? Or do I just tell them no, and then they'll just pick up the phone and call the Chargers? The goal is to get in front of the Giants. Arizona's not taking a quarterback, and the Chargers aren't taking a quarterback. So all you have to do is get in front of New York. If I'm the Giants, I'm getting a little antsy, because if I have identified J.J. McCarthy as the guy that I want at 6, and I know you guys, just like I, have seen the rumors that the Giants feel like J.J. McCarthy is their guy, right? Again, it's Lion season. Believe half of what you see, none of what you hear, even if it's spat by me, your man, Louie T. Y'all know what it is. I'm not telling you anything that you don't already know. But if the Giants have identified, let's just go with the assumption that this hypothetical that they've identified J.J. McCarthy as the guy that they think, which I would love. Get you Daniel Jones Jr. Please. By all means, go get you Daniel Jones Jr. But let's just say that they decide that J.J. McCarthy's the guy for the Giants, right? And the Vikings are thinking the same thing. Yeah, no. We want J.J. McCarthy. We want him. Well, you got 2 shots. Arizona and the Chargers. You just got to get in front of the Giants. That's the next team that needs a quarterback. You're going to call Arizona first, because who's to say the Chargers want to move? They just traded Keenan Allen and released Mike Williams. They have the worst wide receiving core in the NFL as currently constituted right now as we speak. Trading back and getting 11 and 23 could help you clean that up, but you don't want to get too cute, right? You don't want to get too cute like you did last year when you drafted Quentin Johnston, when you had an opportunity to draft some other receivers that were way better. You got cute last year because you wanted a Mike Williams clone, right? Big receiver that can go get the football. And Quentin Johnston has never shown the ability to do any of those things, by the way. You got cute. Now you're still looking for a receiver. So do you want to play that game if you're the Chargers? I don't know. They got a brand new GM too, who's playing analytical ball as well. They didn't have to trade Keenan Allen. They went to Keenan and they asked him to take a pay cut. And I told you this before, and I've told you this many times, and I'm going to continue to tell you this. If you've got the balls to go to a player and ask him to take a pay cut, you better have the balls to then cut him or trade him if he says, no, get out of my face. Or else don't come asking players to take a pay cut. If there are no repercussions for them not taking the pay cut, what are you asking them to do it for in the first place? They asked Keenan Allen to he didn't have to take a pay cut. They got under the cap. Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa both restructured their contracts. They didn't have to trade Keenan Allen. They played analytical ball and they said, we got a 32-year-old receiver coming off of one of his best seasons of his career, and he didn't even finish the season. His value will never be greater than what it is right now if we're looking to move him. We could hold on to him. He's still playing at a high level. We don't have any receivers. We really maximize our draft pick if we hold on to Keenan Allen because we're not as desperate. You trade Keenan Allen, you pick up a 4th-round pick, but you're desperate at the receiver position now. But they did the analytical thing. They said 32-year-old receiver, don't know how many, years of quality ball he's got left. Doesn't want to take a pay cut. He's making $23 million. Yeah, let's move him right now. Let's get the 4th-round pick, and we'll figure it out. Different game. Once upon a time, are you moving a 32-year-old receiver that doesn't know another team in his NFL career, that's coming off of one of his best seasons of his career? Are you moving him? If you've gotten under the cap and you're fine, are you going to move him? Old conventional wisdom says no, not unless you're the Patriots doing it the Patriots way. You would have traded him 3 years ago. Every other team in the league would have held on to Keenan Allen and kept it moving. New GMs are playing that analytical game, and they're looking at it from a different perspective. And they're playing the odds, and they're looking at situations from a different perspective. And I'm fascinated with the fact that unless you got a promise from Arizona or the Chargers that says, hey, go get me another 1st-round pick, and then we can talk. Unless that was the conversation, did you just blindly go and get another 1st-round pick, not knowing if it's going to be enough to get you to 4 or 5? Because what if it's not? What if Arizona says, all right, tell you what, give me Justin Jefferson. One of them won't even need the other one. Give me Justin Jefferson. And we'll call it even on Steve-O. And they're like, hell no, I ain't giving you Justin. You crazy? Man, stop playing with me. I got another 1st-round pick, man. I went and got another one just for you. I didn't ask you to do that. Let me get Justin Jefferson. Hello? Hey, so Minnesota said, I ain't fooling around with them no more. They playing games. Let me call the Chargers. And the Chargers like, hey, man, did you not just see what we just did? They was like, yeah, but I got 2 1st-round picks. What? Look, man, you can get 2 receivers in the 1st round. And then you ain't got to worry about it no more. I'm giving you 11 and 23. One of those dudes might still be there. And they're like, come on, man. We know both of them receivers going in the top 10. Stop playing with me, man. Stop playing with me. So, what's it going to be? And the Chargers like, what you mean, what's it going to be? I just told you. I'm staying at 5 and I'm taking a receiver. What you mean? He's like, come on, man, stop playing. I got 2 1st-round picks. What if you get stuck with the 2? And I say get stuck loosely means 2 1st-round picks. But we all know why they did it. They did it to move up. But what if they can't? Now, again, I don't have intimate knowledge of the conversations that have been had already. And they might have been told by Arizona, go get me another 1st-round pick, and then we can start the conversation. Same thing with the Chargers. Or they could have just said, we know it's going to take another 1st-round pick, so let's just stock as much ammunition as possible to try to get this done. But they're after a quarterback, clearly. And they want one in particular. And we were talking about how, quarterbacks get pushed up, and I talk about that all the time. Tackles get pushed up. But never in my wildest imagination did I think we could see a scenario in which the first 4 picks of this draft were quarterbacks. And we could have 5 in the top 12 because I think Denver's taking a quarterback no matter what. Because after you get past the Giants, and if they really truly want JJ McCarthy and he's gone because the Vikings have traded up in front of them to get him, then if you're the Giants, you have to pivot. You can't then, risk it all on Bo Nix or Michael Penix Jr. with a top 6 pick. You can't do that. You got to move on and get value at that point. Whereas the Broncos at 12, they can do whatever the hell they want to do. And that includes drafting Bo Nix, who would be a perfect fit, if you ask me, for Sean Payton's offense. So Tennessee doesn't need a quarterback. Atlanta now doesn't need a quarterback. The Jets aren't shopping for a quarterback. We already talked about the Vikings and their need to get up. I mean, they could take Bo Nix at 11, but clearly they don't want to do that, or else they wouldn't have done what they've done already, which is trade with Houston 2 seconds and a 5th rounder this year, a 2nd and a 5th this year, and a 2nd next year to get the 23rd overall pick. Clearly, they're not willing to settle for what's left at 11. They've made that abundantly clear. Man, it's a different ball game. These young GMs, boy, it's like Moneyball. They out here doing all kinds of crazy shit. That's fascinating what the Vikings have done here. I would love to know what if they can't trade up. What if? What then? What now? what do you do now? And it sounds crazy to be like you're stuck. I would actually think to myself, if you're a Commanders fan, you want them to get stuck. You want them to be turned down by Arizona and the Chargers. I can't see a way that Arizona says, unless they're like, bro, Marvin Harrison Jr., are you kidding me? I'm not. I'm sorry. I can't do it. I got a chance to get Larry Fitzgerald all over again. And I can't turn that down, bro. Larry Fitzgerald almost single-handedly, along with Kurt Warner, brought us a Super Bowl. Larry snapped. He blacked out in that playoff run. Snapped in the Super Bowl. Larry almost brought them a chip. I got a chance to draft another generational receiver. I can't let that go by. I'm sorry. I can't. I'm sorry. I want to do it so bad, Minnesota. I'm sorry, but I can't. Bye-bye. And then the Chargers say, bro, I'm in the same spot they in, man. I mean, I just traded away arguably the best receiver in franchise history. Need to replace him. I can do it right here, right now. So I don't think I'm going to be able to trade with you. Sorry. I would actually like to see, if they got stuck, what they would do. And if you're a Commanders fan, my brain gets to working, because I've already said that I think our general manager has positioned us to get back into the first round. The Vikings sit here with a pick that clearly they wouldn't need at that point. You could always draft another really good football player, but at that point, if you're the Vikings and you didn't come away with what you want, you probably need to punt on the quarterback situation for now and focus your attention on next year's draft. So you need to start stockpiling draft capital for next year. You just gave away your 2nd round pick next year. Here's an opportunity for you to get that 2nd round pick next year back. Forget about this year's 2nd round pick. You're not winning shit anyway if you don't have a quarterback. If Sam Darnold's your quarterback, you're not winning anything. Now, again, at 11, even if they don't, if a trade does not take place, they could always still take Bo Nix, or someone like Denver could get desperate and jump in front of them and take Bo Nix. You just never know how these things are going to play themselves out. If I'm Chicago, I'm picking up the phone and I'm calling, because the Jets may stay right where they are because they need to protect Aaron Rodgers. They just signed Tyron Smith, but they might want to draft another tackle too. Who knows, right? We'll see. Bottom line is, a lot of interesting dynamics as we see the first real big domino to take place in this draft fall. And that's the Vikings trading with the Texans to get a second first-round pick to add additional assets for what we believe is a trade into the top 5 for a quarterback. That doesn't take place, and you're the Commanders, and you want to get back into the first round to potentially get your hands on a tackle, that's the spot I'm looking at right there. Hey, Minnesota, you're going to need a quarterback. Shedeur Sanders, you're going to need some assets potentially to get up there if the team that gets the number 1 pick doesn't need a quarterback. Here's an opportunity for you to get some stuff for potentially next year. I got some stuff for this year, but they may not be interested in this year. They may be interested in next year. Who knows? Whatever the case may be, all of this is great stuff. All of it is. What says you? Leave it in the comment section. Let's get to social media maneuvers. I'm a midday morale. Y'all know how this works. If you're out there, you want your comment read on the air. The way to do that is to use the hashtag LouieTLive to have your comment read on the air. If it is pertinent, we'll get to as many of those as possible. But the way to ensure that your comment is read is the super chat function. You jump straight to the front of the line with your super chat and you ensure that your comment gets read. So we start the night off with my guy, the Black Al B. What's going on, Black Al B? Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Black Al B writes, what it do, Lou? What's going on, Black Al B? Says, I'm glad the Vikes got that albatross named Kirk Nephews. I thought he had graduated to cousins, man. He went back to nephews from around their neck. I've been telling people the brother Kawazi was gonna cook at some point. I mean, he listens to DMX and Pusha T. Come on. Kawazi's gonna give it to you. Hashtag grind it. He's been moving, man. He's been moving. He's shaking and moving, and I want to see what ultimately this this move right here leads to. Somebody's gonna give up the spot for the 2-1. Somebody's gonna do it, man. Somebody's gonna give it up. Just which one? It's just tough because if I'm Arizona, as enticing as a couple of first-round picks could be to help bolster what's a very average roster right now, still, it's hard to pass on Marvin Harrison Jr., bro. Kyler Murray needs a guy. You got a chance to get one. I know it's a deep wide receiver. Don't confuse deep with high-level talent. I think that's where people get the word deep misconstrued. Is they confuse deep and quantity for quality. I'm not telling you that there aren't a lot of good receivers. I'm just telling you there's not a lot of great receivers in the draft. There are a lot of good receivers. It's only one Marvin Harrison Jr. in this draft, and the Cardinals have a chance to get him. Are you going to pass up on that opportunity? He's the best receiver to probably come out of college. Now, we don't know if he's going to put up the numbers that, say, Justin Jefferson and guys like Jamar Chase have put up early in their careers to this point. We don't know if he's going to come in and do that. But coming out of college, he's probably the best wide receiver prospect since you can fill in the blank. I'm going to fill in the blank with this name. Heavens to Megatron, Calvin Johnson. We knew he was can't miss. And they didn't even throw the ball at Georgia Tech when he came out. They were still running the triple option. They were stuck in 1962. And we already knew, hey, this dude is different. We'll see. We'll see what's going on. I'm actually glad that Kirk went to. Let me ask you something, Black Albie, since I got you, since you're here. Hopefully you're still here. Let me ask you something. Dan Patrick said that Kirk Cousins in Minnesota was a D-. His stay in Minnesota was a D-. So full disclosure, you know this. I shouldn't have to tell you this. We go way back, but full disclosure, I am a Kirk Cousins fan. Now, I'm not telling you that Kirk Cousins is some world beater. And the way he's finessed NFL teams, including my own, over the years, again, a Harvard law or business study should be done on this. A Yale School of Economics study should be done on what Kirk Cousins has done in his career. But do you really think he was that bad in Minnesota? That's my question to you. I haven't looked at any of the numbers, but I'm pretty sure if I went and I looked, your defenses were horrific his entire time in Minnesota. And when he got there, that first year, remember you had Case Keenum, you had that magical carpet ride, you know, the Minneapolis Miracle. You make it all the way to the NFC Championship game and you lose to the Eagles. And then you go get Kirk Cousins the next year and you're thinking he's going to put us over the top. Your defense was ass from that point forward, and it never got any better. Kirk Cousins has never played with a team with a quality defense. Quality. He's had some of his best seasons in Minnesota. He's done some really good things, man. You can't tell me that he was a D- in Minnesota. I just can't buy that. Is it his fault that they get to the playoffs after a crazy season? And we got to watch it on quarterback, and I thought it was a fantastic, like they picked the perfect year to follow Kirk Cousins. That game in Buffalo, are you kidding me? The comeback against Indianapolis, stop playing with me, man. Is it his fault that your defense allowed Daniel Jones to have the best game of his NFL career? That made Daniel Jones look like Steve Young. That game got Daniel Jones the contract that he's currently playing under. Like, I get it. Kirk isn't Tom Brady. He's not Aaron Rodgers. He's not Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, or any of these elite quarterbacks, Josh Allen, that we kind of hold in high regard in the league right now. I get it. And maybe Justin Herbert doesn't belong in that conversation either because he hasn't won anything yet. But we still view him as a very good, high-level quarterback in this league. And Kirk isn't that. But whatever that next tier down is, he's at the very top of that next tier. Whether that tier starts at 9 or that tier starts at 11, wherever you have that next tier, if you got Lamar Jackson and all of these former MVPs, and then you got all these really good top high-level quarterbacks, and wherever that list stops for you, Mahomes, Allen, Jackson, Burrow, Herbert, wherever that, you know, and I might have left a guy or two off. You know, Rodgers still playing, still doing it at a high level if he's healthy. Whomever, wherever that, Kirk's at the top of that next tier. Put another quarterback in front of him if you'd like. We can debate. I don't think he's ever had a good defense in his career. Not one season. What do I consider good? Top 13 in the league, a top third of the league defense. I don't think he's ever had one. Matter of fact, I'd say, I don't know, what year are we in? 2012 was his rookie season. So this is what, year 12 probably for him? And he started since 2015. He's been a starter in the league since 2015. So of the 9 years that he's been a starter, 9, 10 years, whatever it is, I'd venture to say that the defenses he's had have been ranked 20th or worse in scoring defense 7 times in those 9 years as a starter. That's my guess. I can't confirm that. He's played on some terrible defenses. And he's not the quarterback that's supposed to be out scoring the other team's offense in a shootout. That's not who he's supposed to be. That's reserved for those guys in tier 1. He's not in tier 1. We saved that for the best of the best. He's supposed to be the guy that you play good defense and he can do the rest. You never held up your end of the bargain in Minnesota. That's my perspective. But I'd love to hear from a Vikings fan. King of the Bluegrass. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Who writes, a lot of chess type maneuvers this offseason looking for that 3-move ahead advantage, the ultimate checkmate win for their franchise. It's a lot of that going on, man. It's a lot of GMs thinking outside the box. Like you said, thinking 2 moves ahead. You're looking at it at face value, right? You're looking at it on the surface. They way past that. They thinking about how can I maximize this player's value that will help us not this draft, but next draft. And we're not even thinking about it like that. You know what I'm saying? It's fun to watch. And at the same time, you're like, what are you up to? What are you doing over here? Right? What are you cooking up? There's some teams where it's clear to see what they're cooking up. Like the Chiefs, they trying to win 3 in a row, bro. They're better right now on offense with the Hollywood Brown signing. They're better on offense right now than they were at any point last year. Just with that one signing. So, and there's teams that they've said to themselves, hey, we can go for it. The Texans have we can go for it. We can go for it. They all in. You know who else is like, hey, we going for it. The Atlanta Falcons are like, we going for it. We going for it. Darnell Mooney, Rondale Moore, adding those 2 to what they already had, they're going for it. They've got a really good offensive line. They got a dynamic back. They added Kirk Cousins. The defense was not half bad last year. It's going to be interesting to see how all of this turns out. Matthew, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Matthew writes, hello, LT from the Philippines. Appreciate you. What's going on, Matthew? Hope all is well. NFL still closest thing to a meritocracy. If you ain't fishing, you better be cutting bait or you're finding new work. You always got to be moving, and you got to be moving towards the ultimate goal, right? Because this is one of those leagues in particular, the NFL is, to me, like the NBA, they use a lot of advanced stats and analytics, but the formula doesn't change in the NBA. There was one seismic change that started with the Boston Celtics, and then it evolved into what the Heat did with LeBron James and Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, and all of them. But it started with the Celtics. The difference was they didn't band together and got together one summer and said, hey, we should all play together. Danny Ainge traded for all of those guys and built that team, via trades and things of that nature. But it went from you stayed at the place you were drafted and you tried to attract talent there and tried to win, or your general manager tried to bring in pieces around star players and win, to let's build super teams in the NBA. And that's where we are right now. You got to have 3 stars on your team. And one of those 3 stars, probably 2 of them, need to be in the top 25 in the league to have a chance to win a chip. If you don't have 3 stars on your team, you don't have 3 guys that move the needle, you can't win an NBA championship. So the formula isn't hard in the NBA. And you just build around those 3 players, right? Fill those roles. Everybody needs to play their role and play it well. In the NFL, it's an ever-changing landscape, because what works today may not work tomorrow. Oh, you got this dynamic offense. Well, guess what? Now teams got film and they're working tirelessly to stop that offense. So now you got to come up with a way to reinvent that offense or totally change your philosophical approach altogether. Dan Quinn is a great case study there. He's like, yo, Legion of Boom, we killed everybody with that cover 3. I took that cover 3 with me to Atlanta. By the time we got to Atlanta, everybody had figured out how to break that cover 3 down. I had to reinvent myself in Dallas, so we went to more of a man coverage. And, you know, we've worked in a little bit of zone, but we had to switch it up. Because eventually they're going to figure out what it is you're doing and how to combat that. And then from a roster standpoint, it's a timeless, tried and true method, right? You got to get a quarterback. You don't have one of those, we can't even have a conversation. My mantra has always been, if you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a chance. It's really simple. But after you get that quarterback, now you got to figure out ways to try to maximize the time that you have that quarterback. And the beauty in the NFL right now is how fast can you figure out if you got the right guy or not? How fast can you figure out? The sooner, the more wide open your window is. That's why the Texans are going for it right now. That's why they signed Danielle Hunter. That's why they traded for Joe Mixon. That's why they're going for it right now. Because they found out in their quarterback's rookie season that we got us one. We got a guy. We got an alpha. Now we better try to win this bitch, because once he gets to that contract, buddy, we already know what it is. The Browns are paying $63 million for Deshaun Watson this year. The Cowboys are paying $59 million for Dak Prescott. It's hard to build around that kind of shit, which is why you see what Dallas is over here doing. Nothing. Cutting dudes. Cut Leighton Vander Esch. Cut Michael Gallup. Signing low-level NFL players. They don't have any cap space. They don't have any flexibility. They know that they got to re-up with CeeDee Lamb. They know they got to re-up with Michael Parsons. So they can't be out here being reckless in these streets. That's what got the Raiders once upon a time. When they started spending money they didn't have because they forgot, which I don't know how you can forget, hey, we got to pay Khalil Mack. But you out here trading for Rodney Hudson and signing this offensive guard and this tackle. And then when it got time to pay Khalil Mack, you was like, oh, shit, we ran out of money, bro. Hey, hold on a second, man. Let me hit my mans up and see how much I can get. I'm going to hit you back. And he was like, bro, don't even talk to me right now. Matter of fact, trade me. You better find a way to stay ahead of the curve, or like you said, you'll be looking for new work. Blackout B. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, you and the wife got to do Bauer Hour if you haven't. 24 was one of the greatest shows ever. Definitely in your wife's wheelhouse of entertainment. LOL. I watched a little bit of 24. I know how good of a show it is. I think we've gotten spoiled, however. Let me ask you this too. I know I'm asking you a lot of questions, Blackout B. How how much freedom did they have? That was on Fox when that was in its prime, when it was actually on the air. How much freedom did they have on that show? I would imagine it was like every other studio show on cable television. We've gotten spoiled because a lot of the stuff that we watch, it's on streaming apps, and there's no limit to what can or can't be done. So you can push the envelope. It can be risque. Can't do that on Fox. So, and I know 24 had like 19 seasons. Was that a show where you needed to be plugged into the last episode and the episode before that? And was it a running series, or was each episode an individual entity? So you didn't need to have to be able to connect the dots. Maybe one episode might bring back a recurring character from 17 episodes ago, but you didn't really have to know what happened 17 episodes ago to have it make sense for that episode, if that makes sense. Like, the beauty of Scandal in the first year was that each episode was its own entity. As it wore on, it was like a soap. It turned into like a soap opera, which wasn't why I fell in love with the show. I fell in love with the show because every week she was fixing someone's problem. I mean, it was a different problem. It was a unique problem, not like the one the week before. I like shows like that too, right? But it makes it easier to go back and watch, is the reason why I brought that up. When you have to be able to connect the dots, it's hard to watch a show that has 5 seasons, and you got to go start at the beginning. That's tough. Metaphor. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, HBO Max, Tokyo Vice, season 2 on now. Tokyo Vice. I'm going to look it up right now and see if that is in our wheelhouse. Tokyo Vice. Okay. Well, I'll check that out. I'm gonna look up. I'm gonna look up. What was the show I was talking about earlier? Banshee. I'm gonna look that one up right now too while I'm here, while I can think about it. Oh, this is an old show. Is this from 2013? Okay. This ain't a new show. Thought it was a newer show. It's an old show. All right. Well, I'll check out the previews for those 2 shows later and see what they talk about. Colton Wheeler, thank you for all the suggestions, everyone. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Colton writes, I've always been all in with picking the quarterback you love at 2, but QBs are getting offloaded for cheap, and I would love to see us get Justin here for cheap and clean up picks trading back. Here's the problem. Justin Fields hasn't shown, and this is why the market for him seems to be shrinking by the day, because Justin Fields has not showcased the ability to play at a high level consistently from the pocket in 3 years in the NFL to this point. He hasn't shown the ability to play consistently from the pocket, and he hasn't shown the ability to stay healthy. And it might be 1A, 1B in those 2 categories. And then you throw in the last caveat that I think shrinks his market even more for a lot of teams, and that's you got to decide on the 5th-year option immediately. When you get him, you got a decision to make this offseason. And if you trade for him, you have to pick up the 5th-year option, and it's pretty pricey. And if he doesn't work out, you're stuck. Paying a guy that hasn't worked out for you at the quarterback position, and there's really nothing you can do about it because you're locked in. Once you pick up that 5th year, you are locked into whatever that money is that following season. Whether you want him or not, you're locked in. Excuse me, and it ain't a damn thing you can do about it. So there's a lot that goes into trading for Justin Fields. Had this been last year and they were looking to move Fields, they would have gotten a deal done already because you would have had more of a sample size. You would have gotten to try him out, test run him this year, and then you would have had more of a understanding of how he works in the building, you know. And I haven't heard anything but positives from his work ethic, you know, being a leader, all that good stuff. But you would have had a chance to see that up close and personal, you know, see the work ethic, see his dedication, what kind of a leader he is. Then you might be more apt to say, you know what, no, we'll pick up the 5th year option. You don't know that guy. You don't know any of that stuff. All you're looking at is the play on the field. You're taking into consideration that he hasn't played a full NFL season yet in his career because he's always dealt with some sort of injury. And when he has played, it's been up and down. It's been inconsistent. You haven't seen enough consistency. You've seen flashes. We know he's a playmaker with his legs, but at some point, you've got to be able to make plays from the pocket, and he just hasn't done that consistently enough. There have been flashes, but there have also been games where you go, bro, you cannot miss that throw. So I just don't see how trading for Justin Fields is a better. Again, Washington is in a great spot. And this is what a lot of people fail to take into consideration when you bring up trading for Justin Fields. Is you got a chance to. I just talked about the value in resetting that quarterback clock and having it starting at 0 again. The Texans are in the most enviable position. They're in the most enviable position of any team in the league because their clock started last season, and now they've still got 3 years of CJ Stroud on a rookie deal to try to go win a Super Bowl. Most teams don't get to the point where you know you got your guy and you're going to try to go after it in that rookie window. You don't get to that point until going into year 3. At the earliest, it usually takes you those first 2 years to realize, okay, he's got it. We know what we have. Now let's go chase a chip while we can. Let's go be aggressive in the market, you know, load up on these free agents and make sure that these deals expire or we have an out by the time we have to pay our quarterback. Why do you think they signed Danielle Hunter to a 2-year deal? Because after year 3, his contract will expire, his money will come off the books, and that's the year that they have to pay CJ Stroud. I mean, all this shit makes sense, right? So if you go out and you get Justin Fields, you're not resetting the clock. As a matter of fact, you're expediting that clock. You need to know now on Fields, you're not going to have a rookie window contract for him, right? Because literally you're picking up the 5th year option. You got year 4, year 5, and then you got to pay him if he's good. So there is no window, and we're in a rebuild. So you want that window. So that doesn't make any sense, Colton. None whatsoever. The best thing for them to do is to get this rookie quarterback, reset the clock, and then see if you can figure out that they're trying to build a roster that will insulate that quarterback, and we'll see what happens. But you're hoping by year 2, because I've already said by year 3, that's when you should be looking for the turnaround. Adam Peters has already said he's essentially working off of the 49ers template that they use because it's a very similar situation. The 49ers that year in 2017 had the number 2 pick in the draft. The 49ers had plenty of cap space. When they came in and they took over, they came in and they went right to work. They tried to expedite the process. Kyle wanted Kirk Cousins, and that's when I go off on that tangent and I snap because we could have got a first-round pick. We could have had the number 2 overall pick in the 2017 NFL draft. But our dumb owner and his stupid-ass team president, Bruce Allen at the time, were on this whole we don't want to do business with Kyle Shanahan kick because of how things went with Robert Griffin III and how things ended in Washington. So they didn't want to do business. They didn't want to help Kyle. Get your damn first round pick, dummy. And so they came in. They did the thing that we're doing right now. He said, I'm looking at it like San Francisco. You know, you learn, you know, from some of the mistakes. And he said, I'm a guy that remembers the mistakes more than the successes, but you learn from the mistakes. You don't want to repeat those, but you do want to carry over a lot of the things that work. That's what they're doing. That's why I could predict some of the things that they were going to do, because that's what a rebuild looks like. And that's what the rebuild in San Francisco in 2017 looked like. But by 2019, they were in the Super Bowl. By year 3, they were in the Super Bowl. So what I'm essentially saying is, if we get this quarterback right, by year 3, we could be playing meaningful snaps, meaningful games in January, potentially into February. That's not happening with Justin Fields, because you can't build the roster the same way you'll be able to do it if you take a rookie quarterback and you have success with him early on. If that makes sense. I hope it makes sense, Colton. JLG, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. JLG writes, analytics has always been a part of football. The Cowboys used analytics in the 90s to help them with trade scenarios, which Jimmy Johnson developed the trade chart, right? He says, but you're right. We've never seen analytics at this scale in the NFL. Analytics have always been present in the NFL. They used to call it advanced statistics, right? Advanced data. You know, the phrase analytics came along probably and was really popularized probably 10 years ago, a decade ago or so. But to your point, and I think you're spot on, JLG, and this is what I was talking about. We haven't seen it on this scale before. Like, the way it's being utilized and how it's factoring into the decision-making process. Analytics used to be a tool that teams would use to help guide and navigate them. Now it's the main source and the main driving force in decisions that are being made. And that's where the change, I think, has come. Is it used to be, you know, the fourth or fifth, you know, reason why, you know, okay, yeah. And, you know, you come up with your list and you go, and at the end, you know, from an analytical standpoint, it makes a lot of sense. Cool. Now it's no. Analytics is driving the decision that's being made. And I think that's the big difference. Colton Wheeler, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Colton Wheeler writes, honestly, I think we should have offered Kendall Fuller that money, if not more. He's been one of the few bright spots of the secondary year after year. GI to get to him. Oh, good luck. That's an L. Good luck to him, HTTR. I'll always have love for Kendall, you know, and I like that he went to a team that's going to give him a chance to play football that matters well into December, possibly into January. I don't know if they have enough to win anything of note, but he's going to a place where he's going to have a chance to win. And at his age, with his skill set, he's going to be able to help a team. And I'm glad it's a team like the Dolphins that will have a chance to compete in a rough, tough, and rugged AFC. But Kendall is going to help that football team. I don't know about them paying Kendall. They had their preconceived notions about what everybody in that building was for Washington and whether they would fit. I think Kendall would have fit, but I keep going back to the injury he had at Virginia Tech and how he would have to get veteran rest days. I don't think they are really interested in a guy that can't practice during the week sometimes, has to take care of his body. I mean, and that's cool. But at 29, that you might do that for a 32-year-old, but at 29, I shouldn't be doing that. I shouldn't be giving you at 28 vet rest days at 28 years old. You're still supposed to be young in the prime of your career at 28. So that tells you that knee injury is significant, has been. So I think that was part of their process of letting him walk. Blackout B, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Blackout B writes, Vikes hired Josh McCown as QB coach. He coached Drake May in high school. Draw your own conclusions, LOL. But you're not getting them, though. That's the thing is, unless New England, as my buddy talked about, goes rogue and does the New England thing, and I think they're past doing stupid shit, doing the Belichickian thing just for the sake of being different and saying, hey, y'all zig while we zag. I think those days are over in New England. There's still elements of the Patriot way, but they're not doing business like that anymore. That's why their drafts were always lousy, because they always, operated as if they were the smartest in the room. Now we're going to take this receiver 2 rounds earlier than he should be taken. Well, good for you. Hope that works out for you. And it never did. There's no way that you're getting your hands on Drake May. He's going in the top 3 picks, and you're not penetrating the top 3. I can't see it. But, this is what we do this time of the year. We draw inferences. We put clues together, pieces of the puzzle, and we try to make it make sense. If you get up there in the top 5, you coming to get JJ McCarthy, buddy. Did Josh McCown coach him in high school? Rail Goated, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Rail writes, hope Vikings don't think they get May. I mean, like I said, my guy, the Blackout B, just said that Drake May was coached by Josh McCown in high school, and I'm like, that's cool. But unless if he wants to coach him again in the NFL next year, he better find his way to Washington or New England instead, because it ain't happening in Minnesota. Now, I don't know what the Patriots are going to do. I can only speak for the Commanders. And it's not like I know 100%, but I can tell you this, they're not trading the number 2 pick. I can tell you that right now. They take a quarterback. So now whether it's Jaden Daniels or Drake May remains to be seen. I think it's going to be Drake May. So we'll see what happens. Frankie, been a member for 23 months, almost at that 2-year threshold. Really appreciate you, Frankie, who writes, Lou, Cody Barton signing with the Broncos is the best news I've seen. They had a front row seat to watch him get torched for 60 minutes, and Sean Payton was like, hot damn, give me some of that. After my hats off. He got cooked in that game. He really did. But you know what? It's crazy. As bad as he got worked in that game, and he got some work. That was the game that I think a lot of fans turned on him. They already didn't like him. They didn't want to like him because they preferred Cole Holcomb. And I think he became public enemy number 1, not because of anything that he had actually done himself, but because of what he represented. It was another year that that staff failed to do anything at the linebacker position. There was this robust and rich market at linebacker and free agency, and we came away with Cody Barton. And again, I understand the circumstances surrounding that situation, and the change in ownership and how money was a little bit tight. The purse strings were a little bit tight, but fans weren't trying to hear that shit. I mean, we watched David Long get a 2-year, $11 million deal. We watched linebackers sign for pennies on the dollar. Azeez Al-Shire signed a 1-year, $5 million deal in Tennessee. We felt like we could have done that. And to get Cody Barton, that he represented everything that was wrong with the linebacker position. In that week 2 matchup, he got cooked. He was burnt, bro. Toast. And I as funny as this sounds, there was a sound effects from that game, I believe. I can't remember if it was the actual game or one of our players was mic'd. I want to say it was Benjamin St. Juice was mic'd up that game because he had the big pass breakup to seal it in at the end of regulation. I think he was mic'd up, and I caught Cody Barton talking a couple of times on the mic, and I actually walked away from that game impressed with Cody Barton somehow, like more impressed with him, even though he was getting cooked. I felt like they had put him in some bad situations, but you're not wrong. Like literally, like 2 of their touchdowns they scored, probably he was the player they scored it on. Now, again, he was put in some tough situations, but still, it's funny to see him getting a deal with that team after he got cooked in the game in which they played against that very team. The Black Al B, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. The Black Al B writes, all right, Kwesi Adolfo Mensa. So Kwesi, okay. I appreciate that, man. Because I would always see it, and I just was like, Cam. Oh, Cam. He's just gonna be K-A-M. Cam. Because I wasn't gonna mess up the man's first name. Kwesi. All right, that's pretty easy. Kwesi Adolfo Mensa. Got it. Appreciate it, Black Al B. John Perez, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy JP writes, Lou, every year this fan base shits on the quarterback class and have been whining for years about trading back for picks. You're not wrong about that, JP. Every year, our fan base seems to be in love with this narrative of trading back. I don't know where this shit started or why they're so fixated on trading back. Like, for what? We traded back 2 years ago. We thought we got Sam Howell, franchise quarterback, Brian Robinson. We traded back 2 years ago. And now all people can complain about are the players we passed up on from trading back. They got to stop doing that shit, man. I'm with you, JP. Why don't you talk some sense into these fans who can't listen about what's at stake? Because they don't want to listen, JP. You think I'm the first person to tell them about trading back and the value of doing that versus not doing it? I'm not the first one. People hear what they want to hear. And if that's your stance, I said this last night. You may feel how you feel about the quarterbacks. I'm not talking about you in particular. I'm just saying in general. You may feel how you feel. People, a person, anyone can feel how they want to feel about the quarterbacks. Guess what? I've watched the film. I've adapted my own list. I've ranked these quarterbacks. I've put in the work, and I feel comfortable with my list. And guess what? It's not changing. So no matter what someone says to me or tries to convince me of, here's my list. Here's how I got to this list, and this ranking. And you can either live with what I just said, or you could not agree with it, and we can agree to disagree. But this is my list, and it's not changing. If you have this notion in your mind about trading back, we need offensive tackle. I've heard this so many times that I hear it in my sleep now. What good is it to draft a quarterback if you can't protect him? We got to trade back and get a tackle because if you draft a quarterback, you're going to get him killed. So don't draft a quarterback. Put together this line that you're talking about by trading back. And then who's playing quarterback? Well, their response would have been, Sam Howell. Well, he's no longer here. So who's playing quarterback? Marcus Mariota? JP, do yourself a favor. Don't waste your time trying to explain to anybody what they should or shouldn't do or how they should or shouldn't think. You formulate your opinion. You feel how you want to feel and leave it at that. The Black Al B. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Black Al B writes, Kirk's tenure here was a C grade. Kirk can't quiet his mind when shit gets real. Now that is the actual factuals. one of the things that I learned watching that quarterback series that turned me off a little bit in terms of Kirk Cousins was how he needed. And again, I'm not here to judge anybody's process and what gets you to a mentally stable position. But Kirk was over reliant on the team psych, right? He needed those meetings every week. There was always some kind of self-doubt. And, even in that big comeback, who was the first guy that came in the locker room and Kirk was talking to, right? He always, I really believe that he gets in his own head sometimes way too much. And I don't know if that has something to do with his upbringing. I'm getting deep now because he's the son of a preacher. And so maybe he always had this need to be perfect as a kid. I don't know. I don't know his upbringing. But when you're raised in the church, there's always these expectations and you're looked upon to be perfect. When your dad is the pastor, you have to be the perfect family. And maybe that shaped and molded him into what he became as an adult. And now he always feels the need to be perfect. And when it's not happening, he gets in his own head. Look at me getting in my psych bag. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know what that man's upbringing was about, but I know enough kids that were raised in an environment like that to be able to say that that's kind of how that goes a lot of times, but that doesn't mean his situation was like that. But I couldn't agree with you more. He can't quiet his mind when shit gets real. That's the best description I've heard of Kirk Cousins yet. Our defenses during his time weren't bottom of the barrel. He said, the hell Kirk need the Ravens 2000 defense. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. If so, his ass needs to take a pay cut. LOL. I'm not saying that at all. Your defenses weren't bottom of the barrel, but they weren't again, I just talked about what happened in the playoffs. First of all, you let the worst team in football that year, one of them, the Indianapolis Colts, come into your building and stomp a mud hole in you in the first half and do whatever the hell they wanted to do, go up and down the field. That defense was ass-tastic in 2022, right? The defense this year, I don't think it was as bad. I don't think it was as bad this year. They just had injuries, whether it was, Justin Jefferson or it was the rookie receiver. Then Kirk got hurt. There's just too many injuries. And I didn't love the fact that you traded Dalvin Cook right before the season and gave the reins to Alexander Madison like he was a beast or something. And then he started fumbling and doing all kinds of stupid shit too. But I think your assessment is spot on from a standpoint of the grade and him not being able to quiet his mind when shit gets real. The defenses may not have been bottom of the barrel, but they weren't good. They weren't good. I'm not saying that Kirk needs the Ravens defense from 2000. Okay. I'm just saying, could he have the 11th best scoring defense in the NFL at his side? That's what I'm saying. Doesn't even have to be top 10. I bet you the best scoring defense he's had. And again, I'm guessing. I can't say that this is correct. I'm making this shit up. I don't know. I'm guessing. Just throwing darts at the board. I'm going to say that the best scoring defense he's been a part of as a starter was 17th in the league, which isn't bad. But he's been a part of some rough units where he's had to try to carry the load, and that's not who he is. And as far as him taking a pay cut, that's not on him. His job isn't to try to take the least amount of money. His job is to get the most amount of money. Supply and demand, this quarterback thing is. Supply and demand. And there's always a demand for quarterbacks, and the supply is never met. So you're always going to have, and it was funny because I think Cam Newton was bitching about How he make more money than Tom Brady? Because it's a different set of circumstances. Tom Brady could have made more money if he wanted to. Tom Brady never was chasing the bag. He had endorsements. He was doing stuff off the field. His wife made good money. He wasn't chasing the bag. He was chasing chips. So Brady would sacrifice making more. He would take less so they could sign other players. If Brady wanted to, just like any of these other quarterbacks, if these quarterbacks want to, they could finesse the rest of the teams around the league. They could finesse the team that they're with, but that's not how you go about business. Kirk he's good enough to continue to get opportunities to be a starter where he can command fully guaranteed contracts, but he's not good enough that a team marries themselves to him and doesn't want to let him go. So he's in that perfect position of being good enough that you can win a Super Bowl with Kirk Cousins. I will die on that hill. You can win a Super Bowl with Kirk Cousins as your quarterback. But he's also not good enough to carry a team to a Super Bowl. So it's like this juxtaposition. But it's the perfect place to be if you want to maximize your value as a quarterback. Black LB, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, they showed the torture and violence heavily. One of the few network shows to do so. Okay, maybe we will go back and check it out. You're not the first person to bring up 24. You're not the first person to bring up 24. DJ23, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. DJ23 writes, have you watched Barry? It's on Max. It was good. Is that the serial killer show? No, that one's on Cinemax, I think. Showtime. But I think Barry he had something to do with serial killing, didn't he? I could be mixing up my shows. I know it's not the Dexter. I know it's not Dexter. And that's not what I'm talking about. I might be mixing up my shows though. But I thought Barry had something to do with serial killing as well. King of the Bluegrass, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, I think this draft is going to be bonkers. Must see TV. And Washington is going to be right in the middle of it. I can't wait. Great time to be a fan. I truly believe that they're going to try to get back into the first round. We'll see. Again, the draft and how it falls is going to go a long way in determining that. Let's say a tackle like J.C. Latham drops. You could see Washington get super aggressive to try to come up and get him if they feel really good about him. But we'll see what happens. All they need is for one of these tackles that they have a high grade on to slip. And I think you'll see them be aggressive. If all those tackles go early and there's no, tackle that they truly love, they may just stand pat. But I'm telling you, Peters has never been shy. They were never shy in San Francisco in trying to come up and get what they felt like was a difference maker. They did it with Brandon Ayuk, and I'm pretty sure they'll do it again. They did it with the quarterback position with Trey Lance. If he sees fit, he's been a part of a lot of trades throughout his career in his different stops. But I like to really focus in on San Francisco because he was a part of the decision-making process there. And I think he'll be aggressive. I think everything he's done. Somebody brought up earlier about playing, chess essentially and being 3 steps ahead. And I think the trade that he made with Sam, with Seattle, including Sam Howell, was him playing chess, right? We're all looking at, he's got another third. No, I think he's already thinking, I'm going back in the first round and getting a tackle if that opportunity presents itself. So, we'll see. I think this draft is going to be crazy. It's always those drafts where Washington is in and out. They got the second pick in the draft. So we'll, and we know it's going to be a quarterback. We just don't know which one yet. But we'll be done. The fun in this draft doesn't start until the 4th pick in the draft. unless New England throws us a curveball. The Big Bad Wolf Beatty. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. The Big Bad Wolf Beatty writes, Kirk completely lost me that night we played the Giants. And he was like, you get a pick, and you get a pick, and you get a pick. 5 damn picks. He lost. Well, so a lot of fans were already off the Kirk Cousins train because he had already, for somehow, some way, he had already built up this narrative that he couldn't get it done when in critical situations at the end of games, which is so false because he leads the NFL in fourth quarter comebacks over the last 5-6 years. He's got the most. So this whole notion that he can't get it done when the game's on the line is ridiculous. But he's had enough failures in those situations, none bigger than that if you're a Commanders fan than Redskins fan, because all you had to do was beat the Giants and you were in the playoffs, and the Giants had nothing to play for. And it was bigger than Kirk, man. Deshaun was cutting up that week in practice. Those guys, I think Pierre and Deshaun had already checked out mentally. They wanted out of Washington. Jay Gruden couldn't control the team. They were essentially doing whatever the hell they wanted to do. And Kirk is all about process. And, as, Black Al B said, when shit gets real, he can't quiet the noise. And shit got real that week because everything was on the line and it was too much going on, not enough focus, guys doing their own thing, bullshitting around. And I don't think he handled it well. And clearly his play reflected that in that game. That one hurt. That one hurt his legacy bad in Washington. We should have been, and it shouldn't have even come down to that. If Dustin Hopkins wasn't asked that year, we would have already beaten Cincinnati in London, and we would already have clinched a playoff spot. It shouldn't have even come down to that game, but that's nor here nor there. The bottom line is he didn't get it done. So. Good spirited debates. All right. We're going to go ahead and transition to our final segment of the show. And that is garbage time. I never went to social media maneuvers, did I? Find time to figure that out. Let's get to garbage time. And Aaron Donald. AD, one of the best to ever do it. Aaron Donald called it quits today on social media. He essentially said, and I'm paraphrasing, most players don't get drafted by a team, spend their entire careers there, win a Super Bowl with that team, and get to retire with that same team. He says, I never will take that for granted. And so I remember, I think it was 2 years ago, after they won the Super Bowl, he talked about contemplating retirement. I was like, man, out of here. You're just using that as leverage to try and get them to give you a new deal. And it worked. But he probably was actually contemplating retirement 2 years ago. Hung him around. And look, he wanted more money. That's what that was more about. But got the new deal, got the guarantees, got all of that. And then I guarantee you these last 2 years weren't as fun. You win the Super Bowl, and they haven't been the same since. And had they been in the divisional round last year, I don't think he's hanging it up right now. But they made it to the playoffs. They lost in wild card weekend, and he said, you know what? I'm still at the top of my game. I'm still playing at a high level. I'm gonna walk away feeling good about what I've accomplished, and I'm leaving on my own terms. And then people started drawing parallels to Barry Sanders, who also played a 10-year career, made the Pro Bowl in every year of his career, and retired while still, at the peak of his powers. And when I saw that and I saw the comparison, I said, damn, that is a good comparison. Because in my lifetime, Aaron Donald is the greatest defensive player I've watched in my life. I saw conversations about, is he the best defensive tackle ever? I can't say. I didn't watch, Deacon Jones and guys that played eons ago. And I think Deacon Jones was a defensive end, but whatever, right? I didn't watch some of the guys from way back in the day, and they weren't Aaron Donald, though. Guys are bigger, stronger, faster now than ever before. And for a guy that was supposed to be undersized coming out of Pitt to do what he ultimately did, kind of revolutionized how teams, same thing Lawrence Taylor did. Joe Gibbs invented the H-back to deal with Lawrence Taylor. When we start developing positions and blocking schemes to combat what you can do as a one-man wrecking crew, you've changed the way the game is played. Lawrence Taylor did that once upon a time. Aaron Donald did that too. There were plays where Aaron Donald would be touched, I'm meaning blocked, by 4 different players on a play. He'd be triple teamed to start, and then there'd be another guy waiting to chip him just in case. The fact that there's a just in case guy for a player that's being triple teamed on a play tells you all you need to know. A lot of times double teams weren't enough. He'd split those instantaneously, right? As soon as the ball snapped, he'd jump in the air, swim move, and he's through the double team. And now he's bull rushing that guy who he's singled up on now into the quarterback. He was one of a kind. There'll never be another one like him. And I've always said he was crazy. Like Kyle Turley and Richie Incognito and Steve Smith Sr. crazy. Like, there's certain dudes who are football crazy. Yeah, man, he just joshing. Yo, he crazy on the field, but he ain't crazy for real. That's the tough guy persona in between the white lines. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Just don't try to act like you crazy, because there's different levels to this shit. And Aaron Donald would get ejected from a game and wouldn't think twice about it. Like, he one of those dudes that say, hey, you do that shit again, I'm going to rip your mother effing helmet off. He ain't playing. He dead ass. And then if you do this shit again, Aaron Donald's going to grab your face mask, rip that shit off, and he going to try to take your damn top off. And he don't give a damn. I've watched this guy get thrown out of like 3 games and don't give 2 shits. No, he crazy. And that's, I think, was part of what made him special, was that there was a different level. And Troy Aikman said, and I respect Troy Aikman's opinion a ton. And he said, I know a lot of people, and I've had these debates with people, greatest defensive player ever in NFL history. And the name that always comes up is Lawrence Taylor. And, excuse me, my problem with Lawrence Taylor being number 1 for me is I didn't watch him in his prime. I missed that. I can only go back and watch clips of him in his prime. I didn't live Lawrence Taylor in his prime. I got to Lawrence Taylor at the very end of his career when he was washed. So when I saw him, I was like, what's the big deal with this guy? I don't see it. And Troy Aikman said that Aaron Donald is the best defensive player to him in NFL history. But Troy suffers from the same thing that I suffered from. Now, Troy, he could have, if he was in the ball, he could have watched Lawrence Taylor dominate. He could have watched him dominate. He was old enough. I wasn't. But Troy came into the league in 89, if I'm not mistaken. Lawrence Taylor was on the tail end of his career by the time, Troy Aikman got into the league. So Troy probably didn't see prime LT. He saw back into career LT. Aaron Donald was the most dominant force I've ever seen on a football field defensively. And his ability to disrupt games, destroy game plans from the interior defensive tackle position is something you just don't see, which is why those guys get paid so much money if they can do that, which is why Chris Jones is getting paid what he just got paid. Because I don't care how mobile a quarterback is, pressure directly in a quarterback's face is a game changer. Ain't nowhere to run, ain't nowhere to hide. It ain't shit you can do. A lot of times, but just get down. Get down. Get down. I'm disappointed that he's hanging it up. I loved watching him play. I think him and Barry Sanders are the two greatest players I've ever watched. These eyes have ever seen. And it's fitting that both of them played 10-year careers, dominated, and were Pro Bowlers every year of their careers, all pros multiple times over, and retired while they still had 5-6 years of good football left. Barry could have played 5 more years easy. Emmett played, 15, 16 years, and the back end of his career was shit. Just holding on to get the record. Barry would have had that shit within 2 more years of playing. He wouldn't have needed to hang on for 3 worthless years in Arizona just to say, I'm chasing after immortality. Barry would have got that shit within the rhythm of his career, not hanging on just to say, I got a record. Barry wasn't about that, though, and neither is Aaron Donald, clearly, because if he wanted to, he could keep playing. But he's done. And I got nothing but the utmost respect for him. And I'm glad he got a chip, because a guy of his stature, of his talents, I don't want anybody to try to validate his career by winning. That's the thing that people try to do with Barry Sanders. Well, he didn't win. That's always the argument, as if he controlled all the other factors on the football field. All he could do is do what he could do with the football in his hands. But Aaron Donald was a one of a kind. He was a unicorn and one of the best defensive players to ever play the game. And he's a surefire first ballot Hall of Famer. Speaking of Hall of Fame, how the hell did Antonio Gates not get in the Hall of Fame? Can somebody explain? So we let guys, and again, no disrespect at all, but we let guys like Leroy Butler in, but I'm just going to stop because I'm going to say things that I don't need to say. Anyway, I digress. King of the Bluegrass. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. King of Bluegrass writes, the serial killer show that you're talking about is you. Great show. I was the one with the chess super chat. It was King of the Bluegrass. And you spot on. There's a lot of teams out here playing chess. Over some of these teams playing checkers. That wasn't the show I was talking about. Me and my wife have watched the first 2 seasons of You. We need to get back into it. I can't even tell you why we stopped. It was a good show, and we put it down, and we were on it while it was like active. So we watched season 1 when season 1 came out. We watched season 2 when season 2, and then season 3 came, and I think we started it, but we didn't finish it, and then we just never came back. And then other shows came on, and we just jumped into other stuff. I don't know why. I can't even tell you why we didn't finish, but that wasn't the show I was talking about because I know about You. DJ 23, and it is a really good show. His ass crazy for real. DJ 23, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Barry is about a hitman. He is a killer. LOL. I knew it was something to do with being a killer. I just couldn't put my finger on what it was. So he's not a serial killer like Dexter, but he is a killer. He's a hitman, though. That's a little bit different than just killing because of impulse, right? That may be up our. And I know the dude they got playing Barry. If I'm thinking about the right actor, the dude from Saturday Night Live. If that's who I think is playing Barry, then it has a chance to be really good because he's kind of quirky. But I could be mixing up my shows. Ramala Levy, been a member for 10 months. Really appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, hey, Louie, hope all is well. I beg to differ about GOAT. Do you remember how Reggie White used to use that same old move, the hip toss? Wow. They call that the hump move, right? You're talking about where he would take his forearm and literally toss 300-pound men aside. I struggle with, so I didn't know if you were talking about defensive tackle or just defensive player in general, but whatever, Reggie was still dominant, right? I always viewed Reggie as a defensive end, but he started out his career as a defensive tackle, but I wonder where people put him. Is he an end or a tackle? Because he started out his career as a tackle, but I think he ended up finishing his career as a defensive end. And I think he ultimately went outside, kicked outside, and was a defensive end. But yeah, that hump move was something else. And you just take a dude, use that forearm, and just toss them aside like yesterday's trash. Yeah, Reggie was something else. And Reggie did something, a play that is etched in my memory bank that I'll never forget. When he was an Eagle, they were playing against Washington at RFK. And he ran up to, and I want to say, I can't remember the quarterback it was. I wanted to say it was Jay Schroeder, but I don't think it was Jay Schroeder. And I don't think it was Mark Rippon either. I can't remember what quarterback it was. But there was this play, and you see it on his cut up, right? On his highlight reel, his B-roll, when they talk about Reggie. This is one of the plays. And I don't know why more guys don't do this. If I were a defender and I got in clean on a blitz, this is exactly what I would do. Guys always want to go for the kill shot. Nah, I'm good. Reggie ran up to our quarterback, took the ball from him, and ran for a touchdown. He didn't even hit him. He literally took the ball out of his hands and ran for a touchdown. And it's, to me, to this day, it's still one of the most incredible plays I've ever seen because it takes discipline to not hit the quarterback, which is what you're taught to do, which is what you've always been taught to do. Go hit that guy. Go blast him. You got a free shot at him. He doesn't know you're coming. Kill him. And he had the not only discipline, but the smarts to say, nah, I ain't going to do that. I'm going to do you one better. I'm going to take this ball, rip it from his grasp, and take the hell off. And Reggie was an athlete, especially in them days. Nobody does that. If I'm a nickel and I'm coming on a blitz and the quarterback has no idea that I'm coming, I ain't trying to paste him. I'm going to run up to him. I'm going to take the ball out of his hands, and I'm going to haul ass because I run a 4.4 and he runs a 4.9. He's not catching me. I'm gone. Give me that bitch. Nobody does that. Reggie was definitely, again, it's a short list. When we're talking about GOATs, there's probably only 4 or 5 guys to consider, and Aaron Donald is officially in that conversation. Reggie White's in that conversation. Lawrence Taylor is probably the leader in the clubhouse. But there aren't many guys that can even make that claim. Aaron Donald, though, is in that conversation. Thank you for the super chat. Ramallah Levy, greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Ramallah Levy. Prince G, stand up. You are the newest member of the MOBB mob. Y'all know what to do. Show Prince G some love. Welcome him with open arms. Show him what it feels like to be a member of the greatest squad in the game, the Mob Squad. Prince G, welcome to the squad. Glad to have you on board. Rich, been a member for 30 months. My guy Rich writes, I got AD over LT all day. Both outstanding, but AD better. See, but you like me, and you way younger than me. So you didn't see LT at all. At least I saw back into LT's career. I liken it to Moses Malone, right? When I was growing up as a kid, I saw thick goggles, barely jumping off the ground Moses Malone. I ain't see 76ers dominant, 26 points, 24 rebounds Moses Malone. I didn't see that guy. I saw Milwaukee Bucks, big goggles, 2 big-ass knee pads, barely getting up and down the court Moses Malone. I was like, and this is a guy y'all saying is nice? So I wasn't exposed to Moses at his best, right? That's kind of what happened with me with LT. You weren't exposed to him at all. You got to go back and watch YouTube clips to see, just like I do, if I want to watch him in his prime. I remember that Lions game LT had, and this had to be either his rookie season or his second year in the league, and he literally won them that game by himself. This had to be 81 or 82, because I think his career was 81 to 92, if I'm not mistaken. And they're playing in the Silver Dome, and he goes apeshit. There's a sack where he literally grabs the quarterback by his horse collar and slings his ass around and down to the ground like he's some 6-year-old kid. And LT's playing with a bunch of middle schoolers or elementary school kids. It was crazy. Then he picks off a pass in the flats and runs it for a touchdown. Like he literally won them that game single-handedly. He was dominant, man. Like we can't sleep on LT. He was that dude. But and so I think these types of conversations gives me a better perspective of how others feel about Jordan, right? Because I'm a Jordan guy. There's nothing you can say to me about Jordan that he's not the greatest NBA player of all time. Like I'm not trying to hear it. I don't want to hear about Kobe. I don't want to hear about LeBron. I want to hear about none of these dudes. They're not better than Jordan, right? Because I watched it. I lived it. I was a Bulls fan in those days because of Scottie Pippen. So you can't tell me that Mike isn't the greatest, right? And there's arguments to be made about this, that, and the third, but I watched it. I saw it with my own eyes, all of it. Even the early days where I wasn't watching yet, I went back and watched all of that. So I watched it, but I was there for all of the championships. I watched every single one of them. But the young kids don't understand the greatness of Michael Jordan. I was so floored. I was mind boggled at how many people, these current players, I listened to Trae Young, and Trae Young was like, yo, I didn't realize how much of a savage Michael Jordan was. Like, he was really that dude. I'm like, bro, what? How old are you? And you telling me it took The Last Dance for you to realize that Michael was that guy, that he was him? All of those dudes are Kobe guys. They grew up idolizing Kobe Bryant. They can't tell you nothing about Michael Jordan. They just know Kobe. That's their Michael Jordan. And so having this conversation gives me greater perspective on those types of conversations where I go, okay, I get it now. Because I feel the same way about AD when it comes to that conversation. And the people that watch Lawrence Taylor, like, bro, no. Trust me. I watched both of them. Like, I talked to my dad, and boss is like, bro, no. Lawrence Taylor, bro. And when boss tells me that, I'm like, you probably right. He's like, no. It's Lawrence Taylor, bro. He always says, but Aaron Donald, that's a bad man. He always say that, but it's LT. I don't know. That's just, I think it's AD, but those who say it's Lawrence Taylor, I'm not going to argue them down. I understand that there's a conversation to be had. I'll just say that. I don't know if it's hands down Lawrence Taylor. King of the Bluegrass. Greatly appreciate you. And I saw your comment, and you're not disrespecting. Just because you put one over the other isn't you disrespecting. That's your opinion. It's not like you said, nah, Lawrence Taylor ain't even a top 10 defensive. That's disrespectful. You didn't say that. You just said, I think AD is better than him. That's all you said. Nothing disrespectful about that. King of the Bluegrass. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. King of the Bluegrass writes, my father always talked about Mean Joe Green is the best he ever saw. And that's a whole nother era, right? Whole nother era. He was a big deal back in those days. And he probably was ferocious and damn good. How good was he? I don't know. I can't say. And that's the thing is clearly I didn't watch him play, but I didn't even do the due diligence of going back to watch him play. So I can't even tell you how dominant he was. I've seen clips here and there, but I haven't gone out of my way to see him. So you in situations like that, you just got to take your dad's, word for it. Like I just had to take my dad's word for LT. I went back and watched, clips. I've watched games, and I told you I watched him at the back end of his career, but it doesn't do him any justice, Smack City. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, if AD is greater than LT, then I'm taking Mahomes over Brady. So that one is not quite apples to apples. I see what you're doing there. But the difference is both of their careers are over. AD is over now, and LT has been over since 92. Mahomes is still writing his story. And we know Brady has set this ridiculous bar. The only guy with a remote chance, a puncher's chance in hell of even getting close to Brady is Mahomes. It's the same thing with Kobe. He was the only guy remotely close to getting to Jordan in rings. He was the only guy. If I were saying who was the closest to Jordan, I'd tell you it's Kobe. Because of his KI. He had that kill. Like LeBron got better with that over time, but he didn't have the KI early in his career. LeBron's such a player though, man. Like the reason those debates get so passionate is because it feels like if you don't pick one or the other, then you're trying to demean that guy. You're not. It's just, this is what I think, right? Anyway, and you know, if you're arguing for one guy versus the other, there's always these arguments that stand the test of time that people keep, you know, regurgitating. For Jordan, it's never lost in the finals, right? The same thing you say about Joe Montana, right? Never lost in the finals, never lost a Super Bowl. But if you're LeBron, you know, went to XYZ amount, you know, in a row, right? And then when it's all said and done, LeBron's gonna have almost every record known to mankind. So the longevity, everything. Brady has set the bar. Mahomes is the only guy that can knock it down. If you want to say Mahomes is better than Brady already, there's an argument to be made. There are people who feel that way right now. I've talked about that conversation. I still think Mahomes has more work to do. He doesn't have to surpass Brady to be the greatest either, to me, because of his skill set. Brady was a pure pocket passer, and Brady was on some teams with dominant defenses where he really was just kind of, especially early in his career. Mahomes from the jump was the reason the Chiefs were winning. It was never their defense up until this year. Their defense was the reason that they won the Super Bowl. And then, as we saw, you just get Mahomes close and he'll close the show. But it was their defense that led them. They were the catalyst this year. We could say that about the you know, Brady in his 7 Super Bowls. We could say that the defense was the catalyst in at least 2 of them, 2 maybe 3 of them. But that doesn't take away from the fact that Brady was clutch when he needed to be clutch every single time. But Mahomes is different. It's the reason why I put Aaron Rodgers at one point as the greatest quarterback I have ever seen, because Rodgers would do things that no other quarterback, including Brady, Manning, or any of those dudes could do. But he doesn't win enough for me. There's no way. And now Mahomes has taken elements of Aaron Rodgers' game, elements of Brady's game, you know, elements of Drew Brees, because one of his knocks early in his career was he wouldn't take the check down. He wouldn't take what was being given to him. Now he's incorporated all of that stuff, and it almost feels like he's turned into the LeBron of the NFL, because there was a time where in the East, if you couldn't get to the finals because you had to go through whatever team LeBron was on, you weren't getting to the finals. The difference between LeBron and Jordan was, with LeBron, you weren't getting to the finals because you had to go through his teams to get there. With Jordan, you weren't winning the title because you weren't beating him, because he was getting there. You weren't going to beat him once he got there. Hall of Fame players don't have a ring because Michael Jordan existed. Charles Barkley, Patrick Ewing, Reggie Miller, John Stockton, Karl Malone, all don't have rings because they played in an era that included Michael Jordan. And if not for retirement, Akeem Olajuwon and Clyde Drexler add their names to that list as well, right? Like, it could get really ugly for a lot of people had he not hung it up for that year and a half. So there's a lot of Hall of Fame players that don't have rings. So I get what you're saying about that discussion, but Mahomes still has time to close that gap and really make it a no contest. He has a chance to do that. He's got so much time left in his career. DJ23, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes? Bill Hader switched up from the comedy roles. That's who it is, Bill Hader. And he's hilarious, by the way. And so a show like that, so I think people who didn't watch him on Saturday Night Live, they enjoy the show because they have no preconceived notions of what Bill Hader is. He's a comedian. So it's hard to see him in a serious role when he's killing people, because he's just goofy to me. Bill Hader is just goofy to me. That's like asking Mike Epps to be a hitman. And I'm like when Mike Epps, I forgot what movie I watched, but he was serious in that movie. Matter of fact, I really want to say it was that Eddie Murphy movie when he was portraying that comedian, and he put everybody in that movie, and it was so good. It was so well done. And that's what brought Eddie back to prominence, that movie on Netflix. I just can't remember what it was called. I can't even remember the comedian that he was portraying in that movie, but he killed it, right? I think Mike Epps was supposed to be like a gangster in that movie, like a bad dude. I can't remember if that's the movie or am I mixing them up, but it was hard for me to take him serious because it's Mike Epps, right? It's hard to a dude that is always like Kevin Hart can't play a serious. I can't take him serious. Because even when he's trying to be serious, I keep waiting for the punchline. I keep waiting for him to, because Kevin Hart's one of those dudes that even when he's trying to be funny, trying to be serious, he's still being funny at the same time. He'll keep a straight face, but you can't take him serious. I'd have to watch the show to see Bill Hader kind of switch there. And I'm pretty sure he did a tremendous job, though, because I've heard nothing but good things about Barry. And maybe I need to check it out. Just Andre, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Just Andre, thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, do you think Sean T could have been the best safety of all time? We'll never know. It's impossible to say. I'm biased, so yes, I think he could have been, but we'll never know. We'll never know. It's one of those what ifs. And, you put that in the same category with Len Bias. What could his NBA career would have been, and how many more, NBA titles would the Celtics have won had he never, overdosed? We'll never know, right? It's a lot of those. What would Sam Bowie's career have been if not for the foot injuries? What would Greg Oden's career have been if not for the injuries? We'll never know. What would Jordan Reed's career have been if not for the concussions? We'll never know, right? Similar to some of the greats, he was off to a hell of a start, though. He was off to a hell of a start. And the fact that a lot of the guys that have come into the league over the last 7 years or so, there was a generation of safeties, Landon Collins, that era right there, where he came in idolizing Sean Taylor. And a lot of guys did. DJ Swearinger. A lot of those dudes idolized Sean Taylor. Having only played 3 years, what, 04, 05, 06, and then a portion of 07 before he was struck down. Having played 3.5 seasons to have that kind of an impact, and you probably also got to go back to his time at the U. He was a beast. I don't think people really realize that hit he had on PK Sam. I've never seen anything like it before, nothing like it since. That's some video game shit. I've never seen a dude get hit and do like a double somersault and hit the ground and the ball go flying one way. And I've never seen that shit in my life. That's some cartoon shit, bro. But again, we'll never know. Ramala Levy, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate. Are you trying to say something, Ramala? This is the second show in a row where you've had like 3 blank supers. And are you trying to say something? And you just don't know how to work the super chat function? What's going on, Ramala? Are we good over there, or are you just supporting? If you're just supporting, man, I appreciate you. But if you're really trying to say, yes, Dolomite, that's the name of the movie. My name is Dolomite. That's the name of the movie. My name is Dolomite. Damn, that was a good movie. And I swear Mike Epps is in that movie, and he's supposed to be a bad guy in that movie. Like, that you're supposed to take serious. And even watching him, I still couldn't take him serious. I think. Kevin the PRF says Bo Jackson without exactly. There's so many what ifs, so many guys that fit into that category, and Sean Taylor fits into that category. Robbie Witherall, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Will says Derrick Rose, another guy, right? What he was doing, ridiculous, till he got injured, right? Robbie Witherall writes, Louie, thoughts on the division? More importantly, can we be at the Giants this year based on roster moves? I'm assuming, can we beat the Giants this year based on the roster moves? I'm dying to beat them finally. Thanks for what you do. Really appreciate your content. Yeah, we could have beat them last year. The Giants stink, and they have stunk, and we just have stunk more than the Giants for whatever reason. They've been able to find ways to beat us. I'm glad they swept us last year because it put us in the position that we're in, and they're over there, struggling, trying to figure out what they're going to do at quarterback because they swept us. So, and I said it in the moment, even though after the first one, I didn't care after that. Like the first one, I wanted to beat them bad, and I couldn't believe we lost to them. But the second one, I didn't want to win that one. I mean, the season was over. When we lost to Seattle, it was over. And I just didn't want us to look the way that we looked, though. We looked awful in that game. And listless and lifeless. But yeah, we can beat the Giants. The Giants ain't shit. They only have a quarterback. You know why? I was reading up on Drew Lock going there. You know why he went there? Because the Giants told him he's going to have an opportunity to compete for the starting job. Interesting. I don't know if that's true or not, but it would make sense as to why he jumped ship and left Seattle. Anyway, I digress. Robbie Ritherall, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. My guy Robbie writes, you're from VA. Why are you not a Wizards fan? Because I was a Bulls fan. That's why I'm not a Wizards fan. I was a Bulls fan. I grew up a Scottie Pippen fan. I loved the Bulls growing up. And I've told the story before as to how I became a Memphis Grizzlies fan. But I was a diehard Washington Redskins, Chicago Bulls, Atlanta Braves, Duke Blue Devils. Those were my teams. Notre Dame came probably a little bit later on. But like my top 4 teams in terms of fandom, that was the order growing up. The Grizzlies have weaseled their way into the top, 3. They've jumped in front of the 2 college teams, or the one college team, and they've jumped in front of the Braves as well. But the 2 teams I rooted for the most when I was a kid were the Bulls and the Redskins. Die hard. And in those days, I was a winner. Like, you could argue I was a front runner. When you're a kid, you don't know any better, but I was a Redskins fan because that's what I saw first, because I grew up in VA and that was what was on TV. Same reason I'm a Duke Blue Devils fan. Same reason I'm a Notre Dame Fighting Irish fan. Same reason I'm an Atlanta Braves fan. Turner broadcasting system was on. TBS had Braves games on. I saw them all the time. That's how I became a Braves fan. It's not rocket science. The only one that you got to put together a mathematical equation to understand how I became a fan of that team was the Memphis Grizzlies. All the rest of them are pretty easy. WGN was on. The Bulls were on all the time. That's how I became a Bulls fan. It's not rocket science, right? The Wizards weren't on television, or then they were the Bullets. They weren't on television at my house. The Bulls were. That's how I became a Bulls fan. So, David Brown, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, David, writes, Louie, what if we miss on quarterback this year? What's your confidence in AP and the staff change? I'm not, look, it's a crapshoot. Nothing is guaranteed. He's whiffed on quarterback or been a part of groups that have whiffed on quarterbacks multiple times. So I'm not going to trip on Adam Peters if he doesn't get the quarterback right this year. A lot of GMs have failed trying to find the right guy at the quarterback position. You're not always, I mean, the Patriots lucked up into Brady. The 49ers lucked up into Brock Purdy. This is an inexact science. You know how many teams draft at the top of the draft looking for a quarterback and how many teams fail? Just look at the 2021 draft class. Look at that. Adam Peters was a part of Trey Lance and the 49ers trading up. He's no longer in San Francisco. Mac Jones is no longer in New England. Justin Fields is about to be traded from Chicago. Zach Wilson is no longer with the Jets, or he's not going to be here shortly, right? Look at all of these quarterbacks. Look at how things have gone for a lot of these quarterbacks, a lot of these teams. You swing. You take a massive cut and you see what happens and you hope you connect and hit a home run. But you might swing and miss. Swing out of your shoes, though. If he misses, guess what? 3 years from now, we'll be taking another massive cut. It doesn't change the fact that if you get the coach right and you build this roster correctly, eventually you're going to find a way to compete at a high level, whether it's a veteran quarterback or a young quarterback that you draft. But you got to be able to find the coach and construct a roster. Like Jason Light with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's close to getting fired, man. Buccaneers fans wanted his head on a stick. You know, they just weren't getting it done. And clearly they whiffed on Jameis Winston, right? And I'm not sure if he was the guy that did that or not, but it didn't work, right? We do know that. It didn't work. And I want to say it was Jason Light, but at the end of the day, he found the right coach in Uncle Bruce, and he built a good roster, and he went and got Tom Brady. Rest is history, right? If you build it, eventually, you're going to have a shot. There's no guarantees that you're going to win anything, but you'll have a shot. If you keep picking bad quarterbacks over and over again, eventually you're going to get fired because you're not going to win enough ball games if you don't have the quarterback. But that's not going to sway the way I feel about him, because if that were the case, he wouldn't have this job, because he was a part of the brain trust that decided Paxton Lynch should be a first-round pick in Denver. He was a part of the brain trust that traded up to number 3 overall to select Trey Lance, and neither one of those guys worked out. One of them was one of the worst picks in the first round we've seen in a long time in Paxton Lynch. Doesn't change how I view Adam Peters. You're going to swing and miss in this league. All you got to do is hit it that one time, though, at quarterback. So he may not hit it the first time. Let's hope he does, but he may not hit it the first time. He hits it the second time, we in like Flynn. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on the 405th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. That was a lot of fun, as it always is when I get to chop it up with y'all on these late night Louie editions. If you haven't already done so, check out MusicHead University. Sub up the channel, support, watch the videos. I'm going to start doing some live streams over there in May. So a lot of good stuff going on that channel, and we're really about to kick it into high gear over there. So if you haven't already checked it out, give it a run, see what you think. Give it a spin. If it's not your thing, cool. If it is, sub up, and let's get ready to have a hell of a ride over there too. So in any event, you guys enjoy your weekend. I most certainly am. I'm going to be out of office the next 2 days. It's been a crazy week, so I'm definitely going to take some time to just relax over the weekend, and then we'll hit it again on Monday. And there's some things that I really want to dive into, some trades that we didn't really talk about as much tonight, But I really want to talk more about the Kenny Pickett trade. I really want to talk more about the Sam Howell trade and some of these trades that have been made and what teams are doing, and kind of really dive into a lot of these trades, man. We've seen so many trades take place this offseason already. So I'm going to talk some more about that, and we'll have an opportunity to do that in the coming weeks as free agency starts to really die down and we get into that second wave. But that's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. Enjoy the weekend, and we will reconvene on the other side of the weekend. Y'all take care. Have a good one. God bless. Good night.
LouieTeeNetwork.